I asked you last time what your favorite movie was and why. What's your favorite piece of art? Photo, painting, something that's moved you?
You know, it's sad because I don't know the name of it. It's really pathetic because I go to museums and I'm not a big fan of museums, and I hate to admit that openly because I'm going to get canceled for that. But
yeah.
I don't look at art the way I like looking at art in VR, like throwing a headset on and being in a museum by myself.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I don't know names of art and I don't know a lot of artist names. But if I'm going to name my favorite, I don't know the piece, but it's by Grit.
Welcome to the On the Edge podcast with your host, Scott Groves. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, it's Scott Groves here with my old friend John Knopf, and a little bit of background noise because it's currently 120 degrees in Vegas, so the air conditioning is blasting full blast, so if you get a little hum in the background, don't worry, it'll go away soon enough. But what's pretty crazy is I met John because our kids go to Jiu-Jitsu together, and what I didn't know when I met him is that he is a world-famous artist through photography. I've got his book here, The Road Less Traveled, featuring the fine art photography of John Knopf. And then what's crazy is, can I show this on camera?
Yeah.
When I open this, I realize that there's this super famous photograph called Ray of Light that, like, I think every human being who's ever looked at any nature pictures has seen this before. So we'll put like a still frame of this up in the podcast. And I didn't know this about you because why would you? All we talk about is jiu-jitsu and our kids and, you know, cigars and such. And then came over to your house and there's all this like amazing photography all over the house. I'm like, oh, that's cool. Where'd you buy that? You're like, no, that's mine. That like magnificent picture, the Cove one where you're, how long did it take you to get that picture of the Cove?
Years. I mean, years of traveling back and forth to Maui. You know, like most people would think, you walk up to a shot, you take the shot, you move on with your day, and that's like a landscape photographer's life, right? Stay in hotels, then just move on, you know, drive up to a location. No, that thing, I found that hiking through one of the black sand beaches in Maui, and I go through this little cave area, see inside it, and I'm thinking, this is an awesome shot, but I don't have the lighting to recreate it, right? I didn't have any way to strobe like the actual inside of the cave so I could expose the inside of the cave and then also the outdoor and like get the real, like, you know, like the vibrance and all the color and everything. So yeah, I actually had to go back, you know, home, go back and forth a few different times to actually get the right settings, right camera. Yeah,
that's so sad. You had to go back and forth to Maui a bunch of times.
I was sleeping on beaches. It wasn't always the best. I mean, sometimes it kind of sucked.
Yeah. We'll get into your living out of the car phase because, like every good artist, you had to live out of your car for a while. But we really started bringing like the conversation about your art to the forefront because you just got back to from Lisbon, and you were showing me a bunch of these shots you took in Portugal. And like, I don't understand art. I don't understand photography. And you like took a picture of behind the camera with your iPhone of like, oh, this is what I'm shooting. And then you showed me the picture that you got through your camera with I don't understand the terms, exposure or whatever. Nobody in the streets. The light was perfect. I mean, it looked like a painting, not like a photograph. So tell us everything we need to know about being a professional landscape photographer for National Geographics.
Yeah. So, you know, I think what makes a good photograph, anyone can get lucky, right? Anyone can walk outside, you get a good sunset. I mean, anyone can hit the lottery when it comes to a photo. But I think like when it comes to a good photograph, you have to have a good story behind it. That's what I've learned along the way is that, you know, can your picture tell an image? Can your image tell a story? And I think like when it comes to, you know, especially my photography, from what I've learned is that you want the person to feel like they're in the photograph. You want it to be three-dimensional. You want them to feel like they're walking in the image. So when they walk up to the picture themselves, you know, they feel like they were the ones who photographed that piece. And I think like with a lot of my work, a lot of people will, you know, is it AI generated or did you Photoshop the shit out of this? What did you do to get that sunset? All my work has been created within camera. I learned, you know, what is called the zoning system. It was invented by Ansel Adams. And what it is you take grad filters and you put them over the lens. And what a grad filter is basically like putting like sunglasses over your lens. And what it does is it holds back the light. So you can actually balance it. So you have control within the camera of, let's say the sunset's too bright, but your foreground isn't bright enough. So you can actually tint out your sunset and then brighten up your foreground, and doing this all within camera, where a lot of people will take, you know, and I didn't really have Photoshop. When I got into photography, not only did I not have enough money to afford Photoshop or the subscription, but at the time it didn't even have the features that it does today. So everything you had to do, you were doing it in camera. And
just for clarification, Ansel Adams is the famous nature photographer who has like all the famous pictures of Half Dome and the waterfalls and like all the outdoor shit that's like world renowned shit, right?
Yeah, man. Man's a pioneer of landscape photography, and it's funny because like when you said I know nothing about art, I know nothing about art. Yeah, when I got into photography, I was 23, I think at the time, 25. I had no clue what I was doing. I honestly picked up a camera because I wanted to be able to recreate landscape photography. I had seen Ansel Adams' work, and it was inspiring because I walked into a gallery in Las Vegas, saw all these just incredible, like just blown up large format photos, and I felt like you could just walk into these. I wanted to buy one, and then I found out the price. And I'm like, I sell cars. I'm not going to be able to afford this ever in a lifetime.
What was the price? Do you remember of like some of that early stuff that you looked at?
Yeah, I think it was like $10,500 for the print I was looking at.
For a print of a photograph.
And I'm like, how does he justify selling these prices, this artist? And so I started looking into it and really like, this is incredible. Like that this guy's made a living off doing this. Now, obviously, I'll never be able to make a living off doing it, but I would love to be able to afford this work and I can't. So I'm going to recreate it. And at the time, my naive ass is going, this will be easy. I could just recreate the photography and put it up on my wall. And that's, I think, what a lot of people think is they look at it and they go, I could have taken that. And that's what I thought, And then I went out there and realized how much I suck at this. I was fucking terrible at photography. If you look at some of my earlier work, I should have brought some of it because it was just so awful. Because I look back in it and I'm just like, what made me keep going after looking at this shit?
like the ocean just blends with the sky. There's no contrast.
It's like climbing on top of like elementary schools and like getting a rooftop vision. I'm like, I'm a pioneer. Like, look at this sunset. And just looking back and I'm just like,
it's garbage.
It's just garbage, man. And so I think that's honestly what made me fall in love with photography, was trying to get better at it, trying to improve my ability at it. Because I think that's what all of us, you find a passion, and let's say it's not necessarily a passion at first, but you fall in love with almost trying to get better at it, whether it be archery, hunting, jiu-jitsu. You fall in love with you embrace the suck. Because if you're just naturally gifted at something,
yeah.
It takes time. When it takes time and you actually earn that credit, that's what feels good. So I think like, at first, I was like, all right, I obviously am not going to be at the level where I'm going to be able to print these things and put them on my wall, but I really want to get to that level. How can I afford to do this? How can I survive? What am I going to be able to do? And there wasn't much really thought behind just, fuck it, I'm just going to quit my job. And I was working at a dealership. I was making a good amount of money. I was, at the time, I was like a temporary general manager. I don't know what you would call it. Everybody else had basically quit.
Yeah, you're the last man standing. This is typical corporate America. You're like, I got promoted because everybody else sucked or quit.
I was the designated survivor. Okay, and so like I'm basically like working 13 hours a day doing F&I, and for anyone it's like finance and insurance, and then
you're the closer where you go in and you try to add all the shit to the contract.
I'm the fucking guy selling the car, opening it, closing it, like getting the deal, giving them the car. And I'm like, what am I doing with my life? What am I doing here? I hate this. And so I had just bought a dog at the time. I think he was like 6 months old. I was dragging him to the dealership every day with me. And I'm like, this is no life. So I looked at my boss and I put it in the words of like, you can't really afford me anymore, is what the words, because I didn't want, at the time, this was in 2008 when the economy had just crashed. And so I didn't want to get fired because then there would have been no unemployment. So I was like, hey, is there any way that like, you can just let me go, man? I don't think you can really afford me anymore. I need more money to be able to do this. And he's like, no, we can't really afford you. You're right. And so he let me go. And so I was able to collect unemployment. And this was the time when Obama was giving it like extension after extension. So I got like a good year and a half of unemployment. And
like a typical artist, yes, funded off the government.
But 2008, I was looking for a job. To anyone in the IRS, I was looking for a job.
Yeah, of course.
At the time, I was always looking for a job. But on the side, I was doing photography.
For people that aren't watching this on YouTube, you have a tattoo on your forearm of the schematic of a lens of a camera, just showing you like how deeply committed to this lifestyle you are. You're saying that you weren't going to get a tattoo of like used car sales like funnel on your forearm?
I don't think that was going to be it, but to be honest, everyone thinks this is either Iron Man's asshole or the Chase logo, and I work at a bank.
It's a shutter, right?
It's a shutter. Yeah. But you never know. Am I into recycling?
I do like the idea that it's Iron Man's asshole. That's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was a pretty good one.
That's a good joke.
Yeah.
Hey there, Scott Groves with a quick interruption to the podcast. Sorry about that, but I just want to take a quick minute to announce our sponsors here for the podcast, and that sponsor is me, Scott Groves. It's actually the revenue that we generate through doing mortgages here at Neo Home Loans and the money that we generate from the coaching program that I run, Consolidated Coaching for Loan Officers, coaching by loan officers for loan officers that helps support this podcast. I really started this in 2021 as a passion project during COVID, and we're excited to bring you a new episode every week, but this only happens if I'm making money in my real full-time job. So please, if you or somebody you know is looking to buy, sell, or refinance a house, our team is licensed in almost every state in the country. And if you know a loan officer who's looking for sales coaching, personal development coaching, lead generation coaching, please get in touch with us. Scott at the Scott Groves team. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love for you to support our other endeavors, which is mortgage financing and loan officer coaching, which allows this podcast to exist. Now back to your regularly scheduled programming. All right, so it's 2008, 2009,
Yep.
And you're like, I'm going to be broke and live off of $1,000 a month of unemployment and go
Right.
take photos.
And a bunch of older guys who are working at the dealership look at me and they're just like, bro, you understand that the unemployment rate is like at an all-time high. We can't even sell cars. And you're talking about moving to fucking Las Vegas, where the unemployment at the time was the highest in the country. It was like 14% or some ridiculous amount. And I was like, I mean, at this point, yeah, I think that's kind of my best option here. I think that is selling fucking cars on the Central Coast. As much as I'm going to make money doing this, I didn't learn that lesson then as much as I've learned it later on, is that there's really no amount of money that's worth your unhappiness, no matter what it is. And I think that was like one of those building block lessons that he kind of learned along the way. Didn't learn it at the time, but that was kind of like one of those moments.
Yeah.
And I think like picking up the camera at the dealership, because I was also taking pictures of the cars. So it's like I'm doing the website. And I think that kind of like really turned me on to the love for photography. But again, when I picked it up and started shooting landscapes, fucking awful, man.
But why Vegas? Because when I think of landscapes, I think of like Zion, Yosemite, Yellowstone, the beach, Big Sur, all the stuff that's in your book, right?
Right.
Well, fucking Vegas is just tumbleweeds and like, unless you really want to get world class at photographing the strip, and I guess maybe Red Rock has like some really natural beauty to it. Why Vegas?
Well, I mean, California is a really great place to live. Don't get me wrong, if you have a job.
Yeah. California's great if you're rich.
Yeah, if you're rich. If you decide to be a photographer who's just like, I'm not even going to make money off this shit. I'm just going to live out of my car and take photos until I get good at this. I don't know if that's really the best place you want to be at, and at the time it was not safe. 2008, everyone was losing their homes. It was not exactly the place you wanted to live on the street. And in Nevada, in Las Vegas, casino parking lots are pretty safe, man. There's security 24/7.
So you were not joking. You lived out of your car in casino parking lots.
I did. Yeah.
And like shower, shit, shave, where did you go?
So as funny as it is, I would use like hotel pools.
Okay.
I would like jump into hotel pools, clean off, once in a while when I had enough money, I would get a hotel room, that kind of thing, sneak my dog in. 'Cause I was living with my dog. My girlfriend and I had broken up. It was a whole thing, man. And I'm just like,
this is like the male version of Eat, Pray, Love. You're like, I'm just going to go find myself in my car with my dog. I mean, luckily the movie ends well, but for a lot of people, this movie doesn't end well. You're
my
living
story
in the
shouldn't have
gutter.
ended well.
Yeah, you're like living in the gutter with the rain dweller people, the rainstorm drain
the
people.
swamp tunnel people.
Yeah, the swamp tunnel people.
exactly.
Like it could have gone that way if you also had a heroin addiction.
Honestly, it should have went that way. I mean, I'm an artist. Like, it should have went that way. I was supposed to die at 28.
Right.
But fortunately, when I moved to Vegas, so there's like another reason why. So it wasn't just, the cheapness of Vegas. When I started my photography, I was shooting in California, catching those landscapes, and then I didn't have really a lot of money to live in California. So I actually took a breaking point in Arizona. So kind of like a midpoint, I was like, all right, let's move to Arizona for a little bit, and then let's move to Vegas. But it didn't start with the idea of Vegas. It just kind of started with eventually I'm going to get there. I'm going to open a gallery one day or do something in Vegas.
Oh, that's why. Because that's where all the
Dream shit.
This is where all the photography galleries are. Somebody has a big score. They're walking through and they buy like, one of 10,000 prints for $10,000.
Exactly, right? Like someone wins in the casino, they come up and they buy your art. And I was like, this is kind of like the place where if I ever was going to sell my art, that's where I want to do it. And that's my dream ultimately, was to open my own gallery, because what I found is that with all my photography, no matter where I went, no gallery was going to take me on. In the 5 years that I was shooting, I had built up quite a portfolio just from Arizona and different places. I traveled to Hawaii. I was going Grenada, different, different locations. I had got a portfolio, but I had driven all the way up to Northern California, Monterey, all these galleries. Just, we don't really sell photography, and if we do, it sells for like $500. And I'm thinking, it took me so much to get this art. I'm not just going to, it's not worth my time or the effort. I was like, I might as well just live out of my car. If I'm going to make the same amount of wages I was working at Starbucks, I'd rather work at Starbucks because it's a guaranteed salary. So if that's the case, I'm just going to live out of my car and say, fuck it, I'm not going to make any money off my art. So ultimately, I was like, one day I'll open a gallery myself because none of these galleries are ever going to pay off. It's not going to work for me. I never want anyone else to represent my art. I don't want to take a 50% cut. So
is that what it is when you put your art in a gallery? Like, yes, the gallery takes 50% for showcasing, selling, moving it, and the
yes,
artist gets about 50%?
And when after owning a gallery, 2 of them, I can tell you right now, it's not justified.
Yeah.
You could take 20% and still completely be fine. So I looked at this idea and I was like, this seems like it's kind of gatekept. Like, there's no way for me to really survive as a photographer. There's only a few people who are doing this, and it's, one of them's dead. So I was like, how can I be able to survive and be able to create my art and not have to go back to working at a car dealership? And the thought was kind of like, well, maybe I could work on the side and create my art, but I kind of want to just go full in. That's why I decided, all right, I'll live in Arizona for a little bit because it's cheap. It's cheap to live in Arizona. I can kind of like master my art because it's really hard to take photos in the desert and create art out of just fucking, barren wastelands and cactuses. So I thought that'd be a really good place to learn my photography. So I spent like 6 months to a year out there. And in that time, I was traveling back and forth to Vegas because I wanted city shots. I was like, that's the closest like real big city that has like cool lights. I didn't want LA. I didn't want San Diego. I wanted the Vegas lights. And at the time they were building what did they call it at the time? It was the city center, but before that it was something else.
Oh, yeah.
And they were building that, and I saw that they were building the Cosmo before it was built. And you could see they were building balconies. And I was like, dude, that's the shot. Like, that's where I want to set up my camera and fucking shoot off these balconies and get the fountain of Bellagio and the whole strip. So I was like, until then, I'm just going to come to Vegas and vibe and just go, check out the area, take photos. And during those trips, I met lounge singers, like band in a lounge called Red Light.
Okay.
And this is where it gets interesting, okay? So I meet this band, Red Light, and I'm like, wow, this Vegas is a fucking vibe, man. Live music everywhere. Everyone's having fun. I was like, I'm going to leave Tucson, and we're going to move to Vegas. And I was like, it won't
Who's
be
we? You and your dog?
Me, my dog, and my girlfriend at the time.
Your girlfriend's like, yeah, I'll go live in a car with you so you can be a photographer?
At the time, we were able to afford a place.
Oh, okay.
So we moved to Vegas being able to afford, like, an apartment. We're okay.
This is like 2009, so you could probably get an apartment for like $600.
Dude, it was so cheap. And so it wasn't until after we broke up that I was like, it's homeless life. But before then, it was like, all right, I'm going to move to Vegas. I'm going to establish myself there. And so, but during this time, the whole kind of like basis behind this was that I would make money taking pictures of musicians in lounges. I'd never made money off musicians, and I had never taken pictures of people, and I didn't have any fucking gigs lined up. So I don't know where this came into my head that this was just some possibility.
It's like some manifest destiny shit.
Like, where the fuck is this going to happen? So I meet this guy, Marcel East. He's a musician in Vegas, and he takes me to this lounge in Mandalay Bay where this guy, Frankie Marino's playing. And I'm like, dude, it's a 12-piece band, fucking incredible. I was like, this guy's gonna be a fucking star. I'm like, there's no way he's playing lounges for the rest of his life. I'm gonna move to Vegas, and I'm gonna meet this guy somehow. I'm gonna become friends with him and take photos for him, and somehow this is all gonna fucking work out. Didn't know him, never met him before. There's no way this is gonna work. It's a stupid, naive idea that this is somehow.
How old are you at the time? In 2009-ish?
25.
All right, well, that's when you're supposed to do naive, stupid shit.
This is when you're supposed to do stupid shit, This is when you're supposed to party.
Yeah, not when you're 45 and have a mortgage and kids and stuff. Like, if you're gonna chase the dream, this is when.
This is the time. It's like nothing's tying me down. So we moved to Vegas, and within like a few months of shooting lounges, I'm not making any money, nothing. My girlfriend and I break up. And when you break up with your girlfriend, that's kind of like the moment. Everyone, like, I don't know if you've ever seen this video, but it's like how to lose weight. Take a diet, do this, break your fucking heart. Just have your heart broken.
Yeah.
And she, heartbroken. And it decided, it was like lit a fire under me. I was like, all right, well, now it's just me and my dog. And so now I really have to I don't know if it was like revenge or if it was just like, I need to get some success out of this because this is bullshit. I'm not just going to fail. So I call a friend that I had met in Vegas, and I'm like, hey, bro, what are you doing tonight? And he's like, I'm going to the Frankie Marino show. And I'm like, oh, well, shit, dude, can you get me in? And he's like, yeah, man, like, I know his wife. I can get you backstage passes and shit. We can go, like, hang out. And I was like, fuck yeah, awesome. So I bring my camera. I sneak my camera in. And I'm thinking, I'm going to take photos of this guy and show him and he's going to hire me. So I take photos. I had never shot people before. This is 2012. I had just, been shooting my landscapes for maybe 4 or 5 years. I shoot photos of him.
You say that really, like, passive, like kind of a throwaway line, like, I've been shooting for 4 or 5 years, but I know how, like, of addictive personality you have. That wasn't like 4 or 5 years you were doing it one day on the weekend. Like, you were in this like 10 hours a day obsessive. 7 days a week. Give yourself some credit. Like, you put in the 10,000 hours in that 4 years,
It was disgusting how much I shot. I mean, every sunset that I would miss, I would feel guilty. So there was no sunsets missed. That's what people don't realize as a landscape photographer. There's no more vacations. Every sunset, every sunrise you miss, you feel guilty. So you got to be there for it all. And I learned that in a very early. It was like when I got into NFTs and crypto, it was like all about FOMO. And I was like, bitch, I've been feeling FOMO for the last 15 years of every fucking thing that I miss every time, every cloud. So it's like, I get it. So it is kind of a big game of fear of missing out with photography, especially with landscape, because nature dictates your art. Where when you paint, you're creating the art, but nature is telling your art what it's going to make. It's a very kind of like humbling and kind of like a patience. It takes a lot of patience to deal with. Just sitting out there and waiting for the right type and the right moment. So back to the bullshit. So I'm grinding, right? Taking photos, obviously not making any money. Meet Frankie, and he's like, hey, man, I meet him backstage. I take the photos, I sneak my camera and take the photos, and I meet him backstage, and I like run up to him, like, get my way through this. It's called the black room back then. It was like this, like their green room, but they had a black room for the parties after. And I like sneak up to him, I'm like, hey, man, took these photos, like a little fucking kid fan. Took these photos of your show tonight, just wanted you to check him out. And I don't know why he gave me the time of day, but he did. And he looks through and he's like, these are badass, man. Like, these are really fucking sick. He's like, let's meet tomorrow and like talk. And I was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, this is way out of my league, man. I'm from, Tucson, Arizona, like small towns my whole life. Okay, I'm meeting with like now this headliner. He's got, he's at the headlining of the Stratosphere. And I'm like, this is huge for me. I had never even lived in Vegas before. I had never been in a real city. So I'm like, all right, man, cool. I'll meet you for lunch tomorrow. And we meet in this cafe where every fucking menu item is named after him. The fucking menu literally has a picture of him. I'm like, dude, I'm in over my head. I'm so far in over my head. And so he's like, hey, man, like, I really loved your photography. I don't have a photographer right now. What do you want? Like, I would love to hire you full-time as my exclusive photographer. What would you like to charge me? And I was thinking, like, this would get me out of my shitty, car. Like, this would pay my rent. And split second, nothing. Don't pay me anything. I was like, what I need, and I showed him my art on my phone. And I'm like, this is what I want to do. And it was like, I love your shit, man. You're an incredible musician, but I don't want to be your photographer for the rest of my life. I want to do my own thing. I want to kind of like make it with my name. And I showed him my work. He's like, so what do you want from me? And I was like, I need you to introduce me to everybody in this town. I was like, I haven't lived here very long, and I need to know everybody, and I'll shoot for you for free. In trade, you network me out to everybody that you know. And so that was kind of the agreement from the very beginning.
You like just completely whore yourself out for like $0.
Straight up whored myself out to every single celebrity in town and networked further. So he would say, well, Carrot Top loves your work. Do you want to go shoot for him? And he would introduce me to Carrot Top. And then I'd work for Carrot Top, and I'd be like, hey, man, I'll work for you for this absurdly low price if you can just introduce me to the next person and just move my way up. Because the idea was like, if I can meet enough people, eventually I'll get to the executive and get my gallery. I don't know how that's going to work, but maybe, right? So eventually you're into it. I don't know.
Dude, I have to interrupt again. The balls on you to be like, I am dead broke living out of my car, but do me a favor, don't pay me anything.
Right.
I'll go ahead and work for free. Just, can you like have a gentleman's agreement to introduce me? Like, that's simultaneously the dumbest and fucking coolest thing I've heard in a long time.
Nothing, no signature, nothing signed, just, hey, dude, like, thanks.
Like, shake on it.
And I didn't tell him I'm homeless. I didn't tell him I have nothing. I didn't tell him that I need to basically sell my camera to survive right now, but I just kind of was
this guy probably thinks you're a trust fund baby. Like, you don't need money. Right. You're living in the, penthouse of the Ritz. He's like, yeah, cool. Work for free, you rich bitch.
Yeah,
he doesn't know you're living in the truck with your dog trying to sneak into the hotel pool to shower once in a while.
Yeah, I just had fucking lost my girlfriend, completely heartbroken, falling apart in this new town that I knew nobody. And I'm just like, yeah, I'll work for free. It made sense to me at the time. I don't know if it would now, but it did then.
Right.
And so, I start shooting for all these guys. And within like a year or so, I'm at Frankie's house. And this guy walks in, and I swear he looks like Professor X. And I'm like, that guy's rich. I'm like, that guy's an executive or something. I'm like, I need to work my way into talking to him somehow. I was like, somehow I have to network into this guy. And so we're sitting at Frankie's little bar at his house, and he's like, yeah, that's my photographer. He's like, he's kills it. And he's like, show him your work. And showing him Frankie's, and I was like, yeah, man. He's like, these are my photos. I was like, Frank, why don't you have any of my photography hanging in your house, like my landscapes? And he's like, that was like my way into kind of like saying, hey, I do landscapes. And guy's like, you do landscapes? And I was like, I do. He's like, oh, so you don't want to be this asshole's photographer the rest of your life, working for free. And I was like, no, I definitely don't. So I show my work, and he's like, dude, these are fucking incredible. Like, this is art. And he shows his wife, who just happens to be an avid landscape photography collector. And so she's going through it going, you're really, really good. And he goes, well, what do you want out of your career? What are you trying to do? And I was like, I can't sell my art through other galleries. It's really hard to do it through my website. I want to open my own gallery. And he's like, funny thing, he's like, I can help you do that. He's like, I can help you open a gallery. I was like, okay, whatever. I thought he was full of shit. And I was like, that would be amazing. I just played the part. And I'm like, yeah, man, that would be incredible. Please do. So turns out the guy is the CEO of the Stratosphere. And he offers me a 15% cut of everything I sell and gives me a gallery for free. So I can put all my art in there, just have to do a little bit of rebuilding, basically rip out the carpet, repaint it, do everything, to make it look nice. And he's like, all you have to do is give me 15% of everything you sell, and you can stay here as long as you want. And I sell in like a 2-year lease with this guy. And I was like, holy shit. And because I knew all these celebrities.
You didn't have to sleep with them or anything?
Didn't have to suck a stick or anything.
Okay, sweet.
Didn't have to do anything. Nicest guy, Frank Riolo. One of the coolest fucking people, man. He hooked it up. And I think maybe like he saw himself in me. He looked at me and he goes, this guy's he's trying to chase a passion. How can I help him do it? Like he's obviously not going to give up until he gets what he wants.
People talk so much shit about rich people, but like, if I was rich, that's the kind of shit I would do, right? Like give people opportunity to like chase their dreams, which I think is more the norm than the like, Uncle McScrooge just sitting there like counting all of his gold coins and hating everybody. It's like wealthy people, at least in my experience, the few that I've met, are more like this guy than, the TV villain type.
Absolutely. I can tell you firsthand, a lot of collectors that I've dealt with are pretty wealthy and they're incredibly supportive. It's typically not about the art. It's more about supporting the passion. And I think, kind of sidetrack note, but like you take a photographer and it's like kind of like a dream shit to be able to just go around the world and just chase your passion, do what you love, right? And I think like a lot of people that take desk jobs, I was one of them, they look at guys who do that and they go, well, I didn't do that. I took the desk job so I could make enough money. So maybe I could support some guy who does this. And that's what a lot of wealthy people have said to me. It's like, I don't get to do what you do, but I have enough money that I can support your passion and kind of live like vicariously through you.
That makes sense.
And I think it's like why they hang the art too. It's like they look at that and they go, this is my passion as well. I think a lot of people who buy landscape photography, they love the outdoors. They love the idea of doing that, chasing the art, chasing their passion. And I think that's what the story is behind a lot of the art, is what you did to get the art. And it's kind of always a cool story of like how this was created. It wasn't, and nothing against painting, but it's like, in the painting was like, this was a canvas, this were the emotions behind it, where it's like, I climbed this 60-foot fucking cliff, almost died.
Yeah. Almost dropped my $50,000 camera.
Almost everything, and, by the way, I've been suffering the last 15 years to get to this point, just to get to that shit cliff.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think there's always like a story behind it. So I think Frank looked at me and just goes, I'm going to take care of this. I'm going to hook this kid up. So because of all the networking I had done, and because like when I had met Frankie, like he says to me, he's like, have you ever shot people before? And I go, fuck yeah. Because I was young, I was naive, and of course I'm going to lie. It's like you're in the champagne room, pretend like you've been there before. So I was like, yeah, fuck yeah, I have. So I kind of continued that of like, yeah, I've shot lots of people. So I kind of continued bidding more and more jobs. So I had networked out to so many different, I'd worked with Motley Crue, I had worked with, Carrot Top, I'd worked with Bruno Mars, Britney Spears. So when I like did my grand opening for my gallery, I invited the whole fucking city. It was like I invited everybody that I'd worked for free and said, hey, remember all those times I did
Payback, bitch.
This is that fucking favor I need. I need that favor. And dude, Vinnie Paul showed up, like Vince Neil was like, dude, thank you guys. Like this was that favor I really fucking needed. Like the guys from Deep Purple showed up. It was a fucking so cool for me. So I'm like, all these pictures online is just like all these celebrities that actually showed up, which helped the gallery initially. immediately, we sold our first print that night. That was my second print I had ever sold, ever. So this is the second one I've sold for, I think, $8,500
For a photo.
for a photo. And it was to the coolest thing ever. It was the Colonel's wife, Tom, the guy who managed Elvis.
Oh, yeah.
His wife, his mistress wife, I don't know, one of the girls, whatever the situation was.
Right.
It was really fucking cool. It was just like a really exciting moment for me because I had no idea that I could actually sell my art. And it was the fact that it was like even someone, you know, within the Colonels, like within Elvis, the check literally said the Elvis Trust Fund.
Oh,
I was like, this is the fucking coolest thing ever. And it was like all these celebrities, I was like walking down the red carpet. My dog was with me, you know, Riley was with me. And it was like, dude, I made it. I did it. My name's up on the fucking outside of the gallery. And I was like, I can sell my art and like survive off this. And, you know, it's funny because like I thought after like you build it, they will come, you know. They didn't come.
They came for one night.
They came for one night, my friend. They came for one night. I was, you know, and it took a lot more work than I thought. It took everything. That's where, you know, you start to lose the passion.
So for 2 years, you ran the gallery?
So at the time, I was running the gallery, trying to take photos, trying to manage everything, trying to sell photos, trying to figure out how to market, trying to figure out how to... I had never run a business, accounting, city licenses. Like, dude, I am so unorganized. I'm like the Bill Murray of photography. Like, you'll never be able to get a hold of me.
Right.
Like, I just want to go out and take my photos and then just put it up there.
You're like a real artist.
I guess, if that's what you want to call it these days. More of just like I'm a lazy artist. I just don't want to sell it. I just want to make my work and just put it up on my walls. There was never, you know, when I got into the art, it was never the intention of selling it. It was to put on the walls. This kind of came after was the idea of like, well, how can I sustain a lifestyle doing this? And so I think like the first, you know, year of doing it, I found this was next to impossible doing this on my own. And I decided to expand and I brought an investor in. One of my collectors, super nice guy. And he just, again, wanted to support the passion. And so the stipulations is that if I opened another gallery, it would have to be in the Midwest in Minnesota. I don't know if you've ever been to Minnesota.
Yep, sure.
Okay, so can we trash talk that state for a little bit?
Yeah, that's fine. Fuck. I mean, not exactly what I would consider fine art collectors. I mean, I'm sure there's the exception to the rule. But when I think of Minnesota, I don't think of like rich people walking through a Vegas casino buying landscape art photography.
Yeah, I mean, actually, there's a lot of wealthy people who do buy art, but the problem with Minnesota for me is that it's like Russia with lakes.
Yeah, it's real cold.
It's depressing. There's no tree growth during the winter. It's like only 3 months out of the year that it's actually pretty. And
by the way, that 3 months is pretty awesome. Minnesota and Wisconsin, like for like 3-4 months, very cool.
It's a vibe.
But yeah, for like 8 months, it's cold and miserable.
Awful. And it's like for a landscape photographer who thrives off sunsets and sun and going out and like...
Yeah, Vegas is your place.
This is like, dude, we have national parks surrounding us everywhere. Within an hour, you can get to almost any national park. It's a really good spot, right? And Minnesota, you're kind of like, it almost feels like you're landlocked. There's just nothing there. It's just depressing. And so I think for, you know, the good like 6 months to a year of expanding into the next gallery, that's when it like started to hit, you know, that this passion is now turning into a business. And I was starting to really lose my love for photography. And mind you, at the time, you know, I had that gallery open in Vegas, but I had to sell all my equipment just to move to Minnesota to open this next gallery. So I'm cameraless now. Probably one of the only, I think, landscape photographers who owned multiple galleries and had no camera. Because I'm trying to just basically sell my art and survive. So sold all my equipment, have sold TVs. I mean, anything I could do to just get there. And Jamie and I were together at the time. So Jamie went through all this shit. And just watching me just like fall apart.
Trooper, dude.
Yeah, just watching me fall apart, trying to, you know, survive off of this. And so we get this gallery open, and it took some time to turn into profit, but luckily I had a guy who understood how to create business. And until like the pandemic hit, we would have survived. You know, we were starting to actually, it takes about 2 years to actually turn, you know, a profit, you know, a business into a profit. We were about to that moment where it was about to flip out of the red zone and into the green, and then fucking pandemic hits. And it was funny because like at the time, we were already going to say, you know, I think we should probably close the gallery just because of the fact that it's like, it's taking too much time to fucking create profit. Who knows where this could go? This is Minnesota. I didn't want to be there any longer. I wanted to come back home to Vegas. I wasn't going to stay there any longer. And so I think the pandemic ultimately kind of got me out of that situation. It kind of saved me because I was pretty much ready to give up on photography. I was pretty much over it. And to go back, you know, during the whole phase of owning my first gallery, I had never really experienced fame with the sex, drugs, rock and roll. I had only experienced sex, drugs, and rock and roll in a shitty small town. Fame with that whole thing is a quasi-fame, is a whole different story. And so I think I went down like a really dark spiral, you know, of just like experiencing all these new things, partying really hard, and hitting rock bottom even harder. You know, I got into stupid shit. I mean,
because whatever you think you can do, wherever you're listening to this from right now, you can do it at like a 10x level in Vegas. And you can do it at a 10x level in Vegas on a random Tuesday night in September. It doesn't have to be the Super Bowl.
That's the thing. It's like I'd be sitting in an Escalade with Vinnie Paul listening to his new album, you know, partying with a bunch of friends.
People.
Sometimes people. Yeah, let's just say
people.
Let's just say people. And it is a Tuesday fucking night. And I'm thinking this would be the best night of my life if I was living in Arizona. And this is a Tuesday. And so you start going down these dark spirals, you know, of just like peak moments. Will this ever be good enough? Drugs, all that. And I got severely addicted to a lot of shit just because I had never lived this life before. I had never seen anything like this in a black room in a dark casino where just people party all night until 3 a.m. Never seen any of this shit before. Hotel room party, all of it, you know? So yeah, I fell down a dark, dark spiral. So when I moved to Minnesota, it was kind of like an awakening. It was kind of like a moment where, you know, me and Jamie had just gotten together. I was trying to figure out my life, trying to figure out what the fuck I was doing with my art. Am I going to even continue it? So when I opened the second gallery, I was in another world, just completely lost. And this is like the path of an artist where it's like, you know, a lot of people will look at the success now and go, well, you're an overnight success. And it's like, well, I mean, an overnight success of 15 years of this, you know, or 17 years now of this. It's like, it didn't just happen overnight. It's 17 years of grinding through the bullshit. And I think like from hitting rock bottom from, you know, Vegas and like all this success at once being thrown at me, I mean, I took it, I guess, kind of well, but at the same time, I think I took it like any artist where it was just like, I don't deserve this. What is it? Fraud syndrome or whatever imposter syndrome. And I'm thinking, I don't deserve this, you know, and my art sucks. And people would tell me your art is so beautiful and be like, no, it's not. You know, I'm not good. And it was just constant. And so you're battling this inner battle. You're battling, you know, trying to justify prices. You're battling trying to keep these galleries open. And I think when the pandemic hit, it was like this just huge weight off my shoulders. It was like, I can't continue because I have no choice. Can't shoot, can't do anything. And I didn't even have a fucking camera to shoot anymore because I had sold everything to open a second gallery. So the pandemic hits, and I think I kind of like told the story where I started to pick up, you know, stock trading. I don't know if I told you this, but I started to pick up, like, I started to learn how to trade stocks online because I figured if there's no way for me to survive off my art and the government isn't going to help us and we don't have jobs, like, I've got a daughter, I've got a wife, I've got to figure out something. And I figured since everything had crashed, it was kind of like 2008. And you remember when everything just crashed and it was like, that was the time to buy.
Right.
And it was like, well, I feel like this is the same exact thing. It's like that V structure. I was like, I feel like everything's the time to buy. That's what I learned from 2008. So I was like, I'm just going to buy a bunch of stocks. And I bought a bunch of good shit. And I was able to actually buy enough to make enough money to buy a lot of my legitimate art back, like my business back, a lot of my stuff back, which was a good moment because it was like, I don't owe anybody anything anymore. Now I own my art, I own my life back, which didn't really make sense because I wasn't even really selling it at the time. And I was about to give up taking photos, but I just thought I should at least own my life, you know, own my legacy. But I figured now I'm going to be a stock trader because it seems like I'm decent enough at this where I can survive. And during this, you know, year of stock trading, which is just like beginner's luck, you know, it was like, I started to realize how manipulated the hedge funds are, the stock market, the news, all this bullshit. I would read it. I would stay up all fucking night. You know, we get obsessed about shit. Well, man, I had 4 screens and I was jacked in all the time. I had Telegram groups. I had people working under me. I had hundreds of people. I had it all figured out, right? And I'm thinking, I know the stock market. Well, every time it was just hedge funds would manipulate, news would manipulate. It was just, it never worked. And then along the way, someone says to me in a Telegram chat, you ever heard of crypto? And I had, because I in 2012, I had, you know, played StarCraft and won some in a competition. So I'd heard of it. I had bought some, you know, some fun stuff on the Silk Road back in 2012. So I understood how it kind of worked. And I thought, yeah, man, like, this is definitely, one of those things where it's one of those, drug related scam things, right? And he's like, no, man, it's like the new decentralized, currency. It's going to be like, fuck you to the man. And it's like a way that we can kind of like create self-sovereignty, that big word that we all use. And I was like, well, what's so great? Well, it's immutable and it's the blockchain and all these words I just didn't understand. I'm like, okay, I got to look into this. And so that's when I discovered crypto and just bought some Ethereum, bought some Solana, just like, some of these tokens that they had told me when they were just dirt cheap. And so I bought all these things. And at the time, I think this is legal to admit because it was stimulus money that I was buying all this stuff with it.
Legal, yeah, totally legal.
Yeah, I was using stimulus money because I didn't have any. It was government money to buy all these, like these cryptos. And I'm like, cool, man. Like I actually own, like some of these cryptos without actually having to pay for it because it's stimulus money. And we're barely surviving, but I'm thinking, I'm going to max out of this. Like this is going to work. I don't know what the fuck I'm thinking. I don't know how this is going to work, but I had read some of the stuff about crypto. I'm like, this is the next big thing. And so I'm now a crypto trader. I'm no longer a stock trader. I'm a crypto trader now. I'm a crypto bro overnight. And Jamie was like, I don't know what the fuck's going on, but okay, cool. You're crypto now.
Dude, how in God's green earth did Jamie stick with you through all this? She is a saint. I mean, I know your wife. I know she's a saint. But like, this is like next level sainthood or acceptance of you.
Jamie is the coolest woman I have ever met and my best friend. Like by far the most down to earth, cool fucking lady. Like everything that we went through, I am utterly fucking shocked that she stuck around because we could have easily just went belly up broke, but she trusted me for some reason.
Yeah.
She's like, I just think that it's going to work. She's like, I have faith in you.
Like if I was sending off my wife to work every day and I'm like, look, here's what I'm going to do. There's this new thing. I can't explain it to you. I don't know if it's going to go up or down, but all of our money that we're getting is going into this. Can you go to work? She'd be like, yeah, I'm going back to my mom's house. Divorce papers will be in the mail tomorrow. Right. Like,
and by the way, she was working.
Yeah, I know.
She was working. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put all this stimulus money into that. And any money that we get on the side, I'm putting this in. And she's like, I trust you. She's like, you're fucking crazy, but I trust you. And crypto started running. Things started happening. We started making money off crypto. And I was like, okay, this is really cool. And that's when I stumbled into NFTs. Was just one night, I was continuing to learn about crypto, and I was in that app Clubhouse, and that's when it full circled back into photography. I was giving up. I was done with art, man. I was like, I've been doing this for 12, 13 years at the time. I was like, I'm fucking done. I'm like, I failed at it. I haven't made enough money to survive. It was good, it was a good journey, but I had only. And I'm not going to say I failed. I mean, at the time, I had made like $500,000 to $1 million off of my art. So it wasn't like I was a complete failure. But to me, it wasn't what I wanted out of my art. I wanted to be able to thrive and be able to travel all the world and be able to do what I wanted and be able to take care of my family.
I mean, there's, of all of the artists out there that consider themselves pros, it's like one of those things where the top 1% or 1/10 or 1/100th or 1/1000th make all of the money. So the fact that you made $500,000 off of your art over a few years, I mean, that's a big deal, right? Like, that's a big accomplishment. Totally. I know you had to pay for the gallery and you had to split it up with the investors and all the other
Eventually
stuff.
It was breaking even, yeah.
But like, you made money. And most people can't say they've ever made a dime off their art.
Totally. And I look at, so many photographers that have never sold a piece, and I sit there and I go, I only made $1 million or whatever off my art. But I had bigger dreams for what I wanted to do. I wanted to sustain a life. And as we all know...
So like, are most of the landscape photos in this book from that time period when you were building the gallery and stuff, or did this come later when you hooked up with National Geographics? Or
no, that's like 2013. That's a really old book. We don't sell them anymore. I have like 4 left in stock because nobody had bought them at the time and had it left over.
Well, yeah, I'm gonna have you sign up before you leave.
Yeah, that's like the early work. But yeah, it was.
It's fucking awesome.
Thanks, man. Yeah, it's like the early shit. But it's like you want to be able to sustain a lifestyle, and you want to be able to. And that's what the thing about like being an artist is. And this as a podcaster, even in mortgages, it's an up and down fucking roller coaster. Some months you might not make any money. Some months you might make a lot of money. You might even go a whole fucking year without making money. And that was kind of like, can I take this any longer with owning, with a family, with a daughter that I want to, I didn't even have enough money to put her in jiu-jitsu, which I wanted to do when she was like 6 years old. I was like, first thing we did, when I had finally made some money, I was like, jiu-jitsu, finally, It was like, I didn't even have enough money to afford to get my car out of a tow yard. It was like, this kind of shit was just, we were suffering. And so found crypto, got good at trading that, and then found NFTs. And it was like that full circle moment where I walk into that Clubhouse room and I see people arguing about, will photography survive on the blockchain? Can it become an NFT? And I'm like, this reminds me exactly of when I was driving up and down the coast and everyone telling me photography will never survive in galleries. It can't sell. It's just not possible. And I'm like, we're at that moment, that juxtaposition where I could try and create something new. And then I was like, this gives me a passion. This gives me that moment. I was like, I got up on stage and I was like, hi, I'm John Knopf, landscape photographer. I opened multiple galleries. I've been doing this for like 15 years, guys. I've made my life like living off of selling prints. And I can tell you that the blockchain is where we belong. I was like, immediately, that was because that was what hit me. I was like, this is where we belong. So that was kind of like my opening statement into NFTs. And from then on out, I was the preachiest motherfucker of how we're going to make it and how photography belongs in the NFT space as digital art. Because at the time, Beeple had just sold his $69 million piece or $80 million, whatever the fuck it was. And so everyone's going, it has to be digital art or it has to be animated. It's the only way you can sell an NFT. And I'm sitting there going, what about still photography? Is that not art? Like, because I've been told for a long fucking time that still photography is not art, but I think it is. And so,
why do people say that, by the way?
I think, it's such a new type of art form in the sense that we've only been shooting, actual art photography for, let's say, the last 100 years or so, right? We're painting, painting.
Thousands of years.
Thousands, it goes all the way back. So it's a new art form in the sense that someone looks at a camera and goes, you just push a button and you walk, like, what the fuck do you mean? You take a picture. Like, why is this worth $10,000? You just took a picture. And that's a common thought. Or, I can do this with my iPhone. I don't understand why this is worth this. And so it's the same we're running into now with AI technology, where a lot of people can use prompts to create art, right? And everyone's going, well, that's not art. You just put in a couple fucking words and you create a piece. Well, that's the same as saying, well, then the paintbrush does all the work.
Right.
Or the canvas does all the work. And that's, I think as art, because art, the prices of art, have sufficiently gone up over the last, let's say, 100 years, a lot more than they used to be, right? We're talking $billion sales in art. And so I think as artists, we have to evolve with the times, with technology, because we look at art that's, 300-400 years old. That let's take the Mona Lisa, for example. And this is my argument for blockchain technology and why it's so important for digital art to remain on there. The Mona Lisa is not the Mona Lisa anymore. It's been painted over God knows how many times, to restore it. There's literally people who are hired to come in and repaint these pictures in museums. That is their job, to recreate them. So almost all the images that you see within a museum have been painted over by somebody else. So kind of takes the whole art away, right? Kind of takes the whole idea of like the original brush strokes that you're looking at on Starry Night are not necessarily from Van Gogh. And so when you think about that, how long is this art going to last? Another 100 years, 200 years? And then what happens when that museum burns down and the Starry Night is gone? And so I think like when we look at the blockchain, it's immutable. It's there forever. It's on, it creates a legacy of provenance that you can utilize as an artist, and especially for photographers, because I think like for us, we want to preach sustainability as landscape photographers. We want to, preach that like we want to preserve the planet, yet we're selling prints and sending them all over the planet, right? Sending them all over, how much it costs to send a print to Dubai and how much energy it takes. But then you get the argument the blockchain takes too much energy and that it's counterintuitive. But I can tell you right now that just one print sending to Dubai doesn't even like there's not as much as I've used the blockchain. It doesn't even equate close to how much it took to send a print to Dubai. Not even close. In my entire lifetime of using the blockchain for the next 100 years, it will never even come close to what it took to send that one print to Dubai. And so I look at that and I think, how does photography not belong on the blockchain when you think of that? And so when we talked a long time ago, like 6 months ago, like why is cryptocurrency so important, right? What is the necessity of cryptocurrency? Why do we need it? And I think you're seeing it right now with the dollar falling, with the value of the dollar falling, with inflation happening, with the Federal Reserve constantly printing more dollars. And I think it's the same with the immutable blockchain when it comes to art. It creates scarcity, it creates a legacy, and it creates provenance. And I think like when you're looking at cryptocurrency, it's the same concept. And you said to me, like, why would I want to use crypto when I can use a dollar? And what gives crypto value? And what do you think these days? What have you learned over the last 6 months? What have you feel? Changed your mind at all?
No, I mean, the problem for me is like when I want to believe in something, I really want to believe in it, right? So it's like the libertarian in me wants crypto to be a real thing and to be the like store of value that you can't mess with from inflation with just federal government, the Federal Reserve, printing money. I love all of that stuff. I still like kind of like don't invest in things you can't explain. That's the whole Warren Buffett thing. Right. I still can't explain the technicals of it to the point where I would feel comfortable like going all in, right? Like I probably have, I don't know, $25,000, $30,000 of various crypto stuff, which we got to get together at some point. Yeah. So I could still get that shit squared away the way it's supposed to be. But it's like, to me, that's just like another little piece of investment. Like I would buy silver, or I would buy a mutual fund, or I would buy life insurance. I want it to be the thing that's like, oh yeah, I'm all in on this because this is the way that I want to trade money in my belief system. But I'm not going to do that until I can believe it. The thing that's interesting to me, like you mentioned, the provenance, like I think we talked the last time you were here about that documentary, The Lost Da Vinci, where they kind of just keep painting over this thing that people want to believe is a Da Vinci, but it's probably not a Da Vinci, but they keep restoring it. And then they have some gallery say it's a Da Vinci and then whatnot. So I could totally see, 500 years from now when we're long gone and somebody's like, man, somebody's telling me that it's actually Stephen Levine that took this picture, the ray of light. And you're like, oh, no, we could just actually go to the blockchain to, February 17th, 2013. And we can see that this exact picture, which we can verify with computers, no, that was John Knopf, and his daughter Alice started the trust fund when he passed away at the ripe old age of 137 for struggling artists. And like, no, we have proof that is his art. So I can see the value of putting the art on the blockchain. I think it's just crazy that you had all this life experience from art, from being a used car salesman, from networking with wealthy people, to like deeply understanding from living in Vegas, like the whole ecosystem that runs on FOMO, right? That's what a slot machine is. A slot machine is just like, hey, I'm going to lose my money, but somebody's going to hit the jackpot and get back 96% of every dollar that's been put in this machine. Yep. I just don't want to have the fear of missing out on that. So it's like all of these life experiences came together for you to like understand crypto, understand why the blockchain, understand how you could make money off of it. And then where did your photography reintegrate back into this, or when did like National Geographic start calling, or did you just make enough money on crypto that you're like, okay, well now I can travel and do like some real baller stuff with a real baller camera? Like what was that evolution?
So, when I got into crypto, I remember I didn't have a camera or anything. When I got in the NFTs, I'd sold my first piece on the blockchain. And
explain a piece, like what did you sell?
So I put just a static image, which is just a regular JPEG with just one of my images, one of my landscape photos on the blockchain. What that means is I kind of like wrapped it into a token, an Ethereum token, and created my own token, which is this piece of art. And you can now buy that piece of art on the Ethereum blockchain. And I put it up on a platform called Foundation. And I had sold a couple other things here and there, but it wasn't until this big 23 ETH sale, which was like, I don't know, like $60,000, $70,000 at the time, that happened. And then everything got sold.
So somebody paid $60,000 for the right to your digital print, like basically buying the negative is the way I think about it. Like if you could go back in time and buy Ansel Adams' negative that's probably priceless, right? If they could find the negative to the famous Yosemite Half Dome picture that he took, like if you could buy that negative, there's only one that would be like the blockchain version of tactical stuff, right?
Kind of, yeah. I mean, that's a good example, except without the rights to do anything with it.
So the person that bought that for $60,000 can't like put it in their gallery or hang it over their fireplace or anything?
Technically, no. They can view it on a TV on a display, but they don't have the rights to reprint it. They don't have the rights to put it on a calendar. They can't do anything with it. They can just put it on their TV and display it like a piece of art. And so this is funny because like we go back to, opening a gallery in a casino. Why you open a gallery in a casino? Because one night, a drunk gambler is going to walk up and buy a $20,000 piece. Why did you put everything up on, 20, 30 ETH on your portfolio online? Because one night someone's going to walk up drunk online and buy a bunch of shit. And that's exactly what happened. One guy came up one night and he was like, I'm going to buy a bunch of shit. And he liked my art and he's like, I'm going to buy this art. And at the time he was buying a lot of, this guy, I think spent like $8 million on landscape photography. Was obsessed. And this guy had buckets of ETH. So he was just buying left and right landscapes. So it was kind of like a perfect storm moment where I was preaching to everybody, hey guys, don't price your work. Don't undervalue yourselves. We're in a new emerging technology. We don't know where this will end up, but you don't want to regret selling a bunch of your good shit in the beginning for really dirt cheap and then regretting it in the future when this emerging technology happens to be the basis of what we use for, or the foundation of what we use for all of our selling tactics, you know, of all of our revenue. And so I priced it at what I believed my art was worth. And not because I opened galleries, not because I thought I, you know, had made it or thought I had some type of fame or anything like that. It was just, I've worked really fucking hard to take these photos. I've suffered. I've done everything in my power to make these images perfect. I'm not just going to let them go for $50, $100. It's not worth it to me. Some people, I understand that that is worth it to them, and I get it. And I would never tell anyone to, you know, how to value their work, how to price it. It's like my biggest thing is like, don't tell anyone how to price their art. Like, you come up with your own prices. And so for me, I was like, this is where and at the time, because we're in a new emerging space and community, I'm sure you've been in this where it's like a new community being built. I got death threats. I got people, you're fucking, you know,
scam artists.
Yeah, you're ruining the space with your high prices. We need to sell volume, not, you know, like you're going to take everybody's money. And if you sell that ETH, then you're going to destroy the crypto ecosystem. Like my 23 ETH is going to just completely evaporate all of what ETH, you know, liquidity is worth. So I'm getting all these death threats. I'm getting people coming at me. And then one night it just sells. Everything just sells. My entire portfolio on Foundation, 10 ETH piece, 23 ETH piece, you know, everything, all of it. And I'm just getting all these emails. And I had woken up to these emails. I go, Jamie, fucking, we sold everything. Like, we just made like 80 ETH in one night, which at the time was like, I don't know, 250 grand or something. It was stupid. And we were dead broke, man. Like, we were investing everything in NFTs. I was buying photographs as NFTs to prove that there was a market for it. I was, you know, buying collectibles, trying to figure out a way. And so we were dead broke. So when this hit, I was like, so we're going to Tahoe and I'm renting a jet ski.
That was you're so white trash. You're like, that's my version of rich. I'm going to get a jet ski.
I don't know what to do with money, dude. So I'm like, we're renting a fucking 5-bedroom cabin. We're going to Tahoe.
That's amazing.
Actually, dude, it was Big Bear. I'm even trashier than that. We went to Big Bear.
Nice.
Yeah.
And not even Lake Arrowhead. You went to Big Bear. Lake Arrowhead's like the nice lake up there. So do you mind if I ask, and you can tell me it's none of my goddamn business, but I know you've made a lot of money trading crypto and buying and trading other people's NFTs, but off your original art that you've put on the blockchain, do you know roughly how much you've made selling your art online?
Yeah, about $750,000 of my own art of NFTs.
Damn. And that's just taking prints and photos, which you worked really hard to get, but you already had them, and you still retain the rights to sell the prints, but just the one-off digital version of those photos, you made $750,000.
Yeah, they own the provenance. So the idea is like, and I know it kind of like looks like, and a lot of people don't understand, it's like, why the fuck would you just want to own a JPEG, right? Like, well, that doesn't make any sense, but why, and I don't want to say anything bad about art collectors because art collectors pay my bills, but I'm not going to say a majority. Some art collectors buy art so they can put it on their wall so they can say, this person took this and I know them, or this is their legacy and I own this piece of art, right? Like right. You put in, like, a lot of people don't like Andy Warhol's art. I'm going to be the first. I don't like Andy.
I don't like his art.
But a lot of people buy that shit because of the name, right? And so I think ultimately, like, when you look at what the blockchain is doing and like how, you know, the provenance of art, right? Think of it like I own the original digital piece of this art. So like, let's say the Mona Lisa burns up, right? But there was a digital NFT of that Mona Lisa. You now own that digital provenance of that Mona Lisa. Mona Lisa's gone. A good example is this guy named Burnt Banksy, who was on Clubhouse back then. He bought a Banksy for like $80,000 and burnt it, set it on fire, but he minted it as an NFT. Now, none of this is obviously like, I don't know what's the word, but it's like, it's not legal, but of course it's legal, but it's like not really like, it's not what an artist would want, is because you can't mint their art. You can't put their art on the blockchain and then say, you know, like, this is the piece. The artist should have done that and then burnt his own art. That would make more sense. But this is an example. So the guy bought the art, burnt the art, but had it put on the blockchain, minted it as an NFT on the Ethereum blockchain. So now what's to value, right? The art's gone. The NFT now is value. And yeah, I think he did resell it. I don't know if he ever resold it or not. I think he did end up reselling it. But the idea was behind it, let's just say he never did. The idea is to give it the value, is that The art was now gone, and this only exists. But that's not the only case. Point. Yeah.
Let's see what it's sold for.
This dead air is filled by me lighting the cigar.
It made a cover story on the BBC News.
Yeah, Burt Banksy. He used to hang out with us all the time in Clubhouse, and he burnt like an $80,000 print, I think.
It was resold in 2021 as a digital piece of art for $380,000.
Fuck you. Wow.
Yep.
What?
Yeah, he bought it for 85, minted it as an NFT, sold it in 2001 for 380,000.
Does it say who bought it?
No.
Wow, fascinating.
Oh, here it is. The original screen print called Morons was bought for $95,000 by Injective Protocol, the blockchain behind the Burt Banksy stunt. He said it inspired him to be a moron and light it on fire right after he minted it as an NFT, making it the first expression of physical art to turn digital art after it was destroyed. Yeah.
Right?
Amazing.
So okay, I want you to think of like, do you remember like in 1998 when GoDaddy and GeoCities and all these websites were coming out,
right,
and everyone said there's no fucking way that everyone's gonna have a personal computer that they're using the internet for at home. You need it on. Do you remember Web TV? Mm-hmm. And what a hit that fucking was? Just completely flopped, right?
Ahead of its time.
Yeah, right. Everybody thought Web TV was going to be the big thing because it was going to get our boomer grandparents in, and that was how we were going to onboard them into Web 2. And so, like, when you think about 1998 and, everybody's saying that there was no way there was literally articles coming out, the internet would never survive.
Right.
And now we live off of it as the infrastructure of our entire fucking world.
Everything.
Everything. It is the infrastructure of everything. That's what crypto is.
Yeah.
It's not the currency. See, it's the technology that backs the currency. That's what we're looking at. When you're looking at how art is being utilized, now think of it in health records and DMV records, and think of how you can build more layers on top of that and what you can do with this. See, we look at it as like this primitive technology of like, it's a currency and I can trade it. But there's so much more to it. An actual decentralized, autonomous ecosystem that you can build openly with. Never had that before. Instagram, who owns that? Zuckerberg. Who owns your profile when you want to post some shit? If you end up posting a naked photo of yourself, Scott, what's going to happen?
Account's gone.
Account is gone.
11 years of my history.
Everything you've built. Photos
with the family, story, business, selling mortgages. I mean, it's terrifying when you think about it because I built, a $500,000 plus coaching business by being in Facebook groups, answering mortgage questions and doing live videos. If Facebook just decides like, oh, hey, yeah, we don't really like the fact that you're a libertarian and you really like guns. You no longer are allowed to have a Facebook account in America. Like that ends my organic marketing reach for coaching clients.
What's the chances of that happening?
Good.
80% maybe?
Yeah, like one day.
Right?
I mean, look at what's going on right now. The UK is basically fighting a civil war that we in America don't even see over immigration, legal immigration, illegal immigration, the attempt to homogenize like devoutly Muslim population into assimilate is the word I was looking for. Assimilate a devoutly Muslim population into a Western society. It's not going well. And they don't have free speech in the UK. And so now they're saying like, well, if you go to Twitter and you repost an article that sounds like it could be inciting violence against immigrants or any protected minority class, we will put you in jail. Like, America, we have free speech, but we're not that far behind. Like, they don't like, you're disagreeing with the narrative. We're going to go ahead and put you in jail. So the idea of like blockchain, I'll give you like a dumber example. I was checking out at Lowe's and the guy next to me, like, I don't know, showed his ID or said something about being a veteran and he got like 15% off. And we've been in this major home construction the last 2 years where I've probably spent, oh God, I'm embarrassed to even think about it, $150,000, $200,000 at Lowe's for all the shit that we've built in the gym and the podcast studio and everything. And I was like, wait a minute, I'm a veteran. I could have got like 10% off or 15% off, whatever. So then I started thinking about all the places like, I should have veteran on my license plate and my driver's license and at Lowe's and at Sportsman's Warehouse and at Home Depot. So I put my assistant on the task and I was like, hey, everywhere I spend money, find out if they have a veterans discount and figure it out. And so every place is like, I had to register here. To go get my license, to reflect the fact that I'm a veteran, I had to call the VA. I had to download a DD-214, which is the document you get when you exit the military. I had to take that physical form into the DMV, sit in line for half an hour. They had to verify that. And then they're like, ooh, you know, your address on the DD-214 is your LA address, but we have your license here. And I'm like, yeah, that's because I have a house in both areas. They're like, oh, so you're a California resident? I'm like, no, I'm a Nevada resident. So I had to sweet talk the lady at the DMV to finally get it. My military service should be on the blockchain somewhere where they just click a button and it verifies, yep, Scott was a veteran, honorably discharged September 11th, 2000, da-da-da. Here's his medical record. He's allergic to penicillin. Like, why do I have to fill out these fucking forms every time I go to the doctor's office or the dentist? All this stuff should be blockchain-ish, so it's protected, encrypted, and I'm the only one that controls it. But nope, that would be too easy.
But that's exactly where we're at, right? You don't even, so back to the Instagram shit, you don't own your identity. You don't even own your business technically because Mark Zuckerberg could shut you down at any moment, right?
Yeah.
We need decentralization more than ever. More than fucking ever. The fact that so this is where we're going to get more technical, but there's things called, which when I mint an image, which is called basically I put an image on the blockchain, I do it on a smart contract. Now a smart contract, let's look at it like Instagram. Okay. A smart contract is essentially my identity. I own that. I own that smart contract. It's immutable. It's immutable. It's on the blockchain. Nobody can fucking touch it except my wallet. My wallet on my whatever. Don't keep your wallet on your phone. I don't know why I put it in my phone. But it's you're in control of it. That's when I keep going into that self-sovereignty thing where it's like you have the education to protect your own identity now. Mark Zuckerberg doesn't own it. Bill Gates doesn't own your shit. You now have this. So no one can shut you down if you want to say, I love guns and Trump. No one can shut you down if you want to talk about anything. If you accidentally post a nude photo of yourself, no one's shutting you down. You might get canceled, but you ain't getting shut down. And that's the thing is we need a system where we're not being censored because we live in a country where allegedly censorship, that's the borderline where we shouldn't be censored. Land of the free, freedom, yet every corporation now owns the town square of where we communicate. So therefore, censorship isn't really controlled by the government. It's controlled by central entities, right?
Right.
And I'm not talking any shit about Mark Zuckerberg because I work with them on a lot of my NFT shit. Good people. Don't get me wrong. It's just, I don't want a central entity controlling my business. I want to be able to control it. And I don't want and it's not like Mark Zuckerberg's going through fucking profiles going, this guy's a libertarian, this guy's a communist. It's some, fucking
some
random
algorithm.
Some algorithm, some random jackoff who goes, all right, this guy's done. And how do you get it back? Takes you years to, go back and forth. And who do you even talk to? Who do you even communicate with if you don't know somebody? So that's where I say it is so important for us to really start understanding, just like in 1998, if we should have been buying domains left and right and .coms left and right. Well, this is right now what we're doing. We're buying Ethereum names, we're buying ENS addresses, because I think what we're working on right now is the next layer of technology of what we're going to build on the internet.
Yeah.
It will be the substructure, the backbone.
People don't believe you or wouldn't understand. They probably don't believe you because they don't understand you. That's the perfect example. If you could go back in time to 1998 and buy scottgroves.com, bestbuy.com, mercedes.com, allegiantstadium.com, lakers.com. If you could go back in time and do that, you would have printed hundreds of millions of dollars.
Hundreds of millions.
I have a friend who sold luckyduck.com. He was he was an early adopter of domains, just like you were an early adopter of crypto. And he just went through and he bought a bunch of short domains, 4-letter domains, MNTN or whatever.
Brilliant.
Stuff like that. And he didn't know what he was doing. And he's like, Scott, one of the luckiest things that ever happened is we were kind of like you said, broke, and we had this wedding coming up and I want to do something really special for my wife and just really blow her socks off. And I'm like, how the fuck am I going to pay for this? And all of a sudden, ping, email, something Singapore LLC, who's trying to open Lucky Duck Casino, would like to buy luckyduck.com from you for, $25,000. And he wrote back, he's like, let's make it 50. And they said, where do we wire the money? And so same thing, right? That domain, that I haven't heard anybody use that example, but that's a brilliant example to explain where we're at in crypto. Cause if I could go back in time, I'm sure it wasn't GoDaddy back then. It was some other
whatever it was.
provider. But yeah, if you could go back and just buy endless domains for $14 each, yeah, half of them you'd crap out on, but half of them you'd sell for a mint.
Exactly. And here's the interesting thing is that because we're building a new, layers of technology, I want you to think of it like this. Like imagine you have bought a bunch of GoDaddy, domains in like 2000 or whatever, right? And you held them for 2 years. And then GoDaddy says, we want to send you a bunch of money back for supporting us in the beginning. The fuck? That's never heard of, right? I mean, what company has ever done that in history? Well, this isn't even like, I'm guessing if you Google it, you'd find it, but that's what happened in crypto is that we bought a bunch of domain addresses on Ethereum. You could buy Scott.eth, John.eth, right? You bought all these. And then the ENS company gave everybody an ENS token for supporting them in the beginning. Those ENS tokens, I bought 5 domains. Those ENS tokens ended up being worth around $40,000. I spent $5. That's this crazy building of like, and you think like, how is it even fucking possible, right? Where did the liquidity come from? It's everybody building within this technology, within these layers that want to support these tokens, that want to make these companies survive. So when a company gives you a token back, it's just, they're basically allowing you to print money to fund more within the economy, within that ecosystem.
Yeah.
So it's like, let's say for example, OpenSea was one of the biggest platforms for NFTs. People spent probably upwards of $1 billion on this platform, maybe more. And so let's say OpenSea decided to give everybody a token back. And essentially, people are going to put liquidity in that token. People are going to find it value. And then all these people that bought in however much art you bought or whatever you bought, they will give you that amount of tokens back. You're not getting paid back for all this art you bought. Well, this happened on a platform called Super Rare. This happened on other platforms where all the art you bought, you got paid back like 10 times fold if you sold the token at the time. So it's like you're building this new emerging technology, but it's not like what it used to be where it's like you're getting GoDaddy rich as shit. Sure, we are getting Super Rare. We are getting ENS. We are getting these people wealthy. But it's a structure where everybody's kind of building together and it's like a symbiotic, not like communism where it's like everyone's equal. No, it's what you put in is what you get back.
Yeah.
And you've never seen that before.
Let me give you we're in Web 3.0 now, right? Mm-hmm. Like, let me give you the Web 2.0 version of where you basically just get fucked. Yelp. I hate Yelp. I hate Yelp at the highest possible level because, first of all, Yelp exists. You want to talk about communists? Karl Marx is rolling over in his grave about things like Yelp.
Yes.
Because Yelp literally takes all of the work of the workers, aka the reviewers, gives them nothing, and then uses your free labor to go back to the vendors you support and be like, hey, you know all those people that supported you and then became our free labor by reviewing you? Well, now we're going to charge you to make sure those people can see your reviews. And you're like, what the fuck? This is the most usury system. And by the way, it's the same thing with like Realtor.com. So Realtor.com sold to a hedge fund, and then Realtor.com and they're called the MLSs. So all the local services, like Clark County here in Vegas has an MLS. Clark County charges realtors to be part of the MLS to put their listing onto the MLS. And then Redfin and Zillow scrape that data, get consumer leads to buy the listings of the realtors, and then goes to the realtors and says, hey, if you want to buy these leads back to us that were generated from your own product, aka your listing, we're the mob. You're going to pay us to get your leads back. And I'm like, how did the National Association of Realtors let this shit fly where they're like, yeah, this is what we're going to do. We're going to make our realtors pay to be part of a system where they put their work, their listings, their blood, sweat, and tears into a system where that system then sells them back their own leads. And it's so bonkers that realtors and people that use Yelp and people that use Zillow and people that use all these usury websites, you know, I feel like social media to a lesser extent, because at least I get some social benefit off there. I don't trust a single fucking review on Yelp. Partially because I know what you do, but we won't talk about that live.
We won't talk about that.
And let's just say if you go read all my reviews, there's one on there that might stand out. But yeah, my point is that like I said, Karl Marx is rolling over in his grave when it comes to Yelp, because it's like it's not the workers unite. It's like the workers work for free.
It's crazy, right? Because it's like, it's one of the prime examples of, I feel like, where they get free content from users and then they get to make money off those users and the users get absolutely nothing. It's probably one of the prime examples, in my opinion. And I mean, if you look at, so that's kind of like what I looked at when I saw Instagram. And that's why when you look at my Instagram, there's not very many posts.
I know, I've tried to send you so many funny things on Instagram, you never check it. You're never on there.
I delete Instagram every morning so I don't use it. and nothing against, because like Zuckerberg didn't create this shit. It was already created. He just bought it. The idea of giving my art away for free for fucking likes was just the most ridiculous concept to me 15 years ago. Now, I know dudes who built social media standings that have millions of followers off their photography. And now I regret not giving my art away for free because they're killing it. But when you look at that, it's kind of the same idea of like Yelp or anything else. It's like, I'm giving them the content. I'm not making fucking anything off of this. And they're making billions off the views and selling advertisements. How is that a collaboration between the creator and the taker?
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem, I think, with Web 2 when I look at it, is like the takers get everything and the creators are just kind of like, but when you look around you, man, look at everything in this studio. It's all art. Look at, someone had to design the light socket. You know, someone had to fucking design how these look. Everything that you look at, someone had to design this glass. All of it is art, essentially, right? And we don't really give credit to it because we don't really see it as like a necessity. We're just like, whatever. But when the pandemic hit and everybody had fucking nothing to do and we all had literally a TV to stare at, comedy, books, music, everything became relevant. All the creators became real important real quick. Noticed how all the entertainers were doing live streams so we could at least get some fucking music in our lives. Right. Because without that, you get the Great Depression, man. You get, you get Minnesota. So I feel like the pandemic really gave a lot of value to creators. And I think that's where Web3 was born, was out of this renaissance, this digital renaissance of the pandemic. Because even during the plague, the Renaissance came out of that. Art came out of that, the era of creation. And I feel like that's what we're looking at right now, is that this is a whole new era of digital creation that artists are latching onto because they finally see creators being taken care of, where it's no longer we're giving our content to a platform and the platform makes money. It's now the creator and then the platform needs us. And then the creator's actually making the actual profit off of this.
Yeah.
And I think that's, in my opinion, that's how a sustainable economy for the future of how we, if we want to continue the narrative of George Orwellian 1984 bullshit of everyone eventually, like there's not going to be a civil war. It'll just, everyone will be poor and there will be the aristocratic rich and we will have to, do push-ups every morning in front of our fucking monitors and we won't be able to have sex anymore. Because we won't be able
It'll be the Hunger Games.
It'll be the Hunger Games with, it'll just be completely fucked. And so that's when I say we have to, and trickle down, the idea of like trickle down economics is essentially what crypto is. You put in what you're going to get back. And so I've watched, and I'm just going to give a couple examples. Like I've watched this girl in the space who's a photographer. She didn't make a shitload of money off her photography, but she's figured out a way to make a lot of money, which is called farming. And farming is essentially going into these new projects, these new technologies that are being built, whether it be, let's say, so there's all kinds of crypto technology being built on layers, right? So an example is like, I don't know, I'm not going to use examples because that would be like pitching a coin, but let's just say the edge. Okay, the edge is a coin, right? And you're starting your company as the edge, and you're giving tokens and DAO tokens to people who are helping you build the edge up, right? And everybody who's farming within this community, and they're basically like mining for more tokens and helping you build it and letting you use their network to be able to build your company and all this shit. They're getting tokens in return, right? And so this girl found all these different decentralized companies that are being built, and she started helping them, farming, just kind of like collecting these tokens. She just bought her fucking first house during the bear market when everybody's crying and losing all their money. She thrived. She just murdered it. And it's like, I think what we're looking at right now is 1998, literally the beginning, but the internet was so fucking primitive to what we have now.
Yeah.
Because this is built off the internet. So it's like, and now we have AI technology involved with this, and now we're going to get quantum computing. The internet's dead, man, in the sense of like, it's not going to be what we thought it was. We all thought that the internet was going to be the future of how we were going to run e-commerce. But that's not going to be the way, in my opinion. What's going to happen eventually is we're going to steer towards a decentralized space where we can own our own identities, and we're not just going to get kicked off by a central, person who owns that company like Facebook.
Yeah. I can't believe that there's not a podcast collective that haven't like tokenized, because I'm thinking of it in this way. The one of the few political podcasts I listen to is Breaking Points with Crystal and Sagar. Like, Crystal's a progressive, Sagar's a conservative. They're really respectful to each other, but they argue their points, and their show's just really well researched. And they're also honest about the fact that, like, hey, I'm giving my opinion and my slant to the daily kind of political news and what's in the public zeitgeist and stuff. They're not trying to be Pulitzer Prize winners. Like, they just talk shit about politics. I love it.
Right.
And it's like, you can pay to be one of their premium subscribers, which I like, supporting independent contractors. Kind of like, I don't have the money to help somebody open an art gallery, but I can pick a dozen people and give them $12 to $50 a month.
Patreon or whatever.
Yeah, like a Patreon type thing, right? And so, but what would be really interesting is, instead of like behind the paywall pay subscribers, because the infrastructure all exists on Spotify to do that, if they, I don't know what the correct terminology is, I'm going to butcher this, or the crypto bros out there, they tokenized it somehow.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh, we do an episode every day, so we do about 250 episodes. Scott's listened to 111 of them. He's one of our super users. So once a year, we're going to do a banquet where Scott and 50 other, super users get to come ask questions or be a guest host on the show or something like that. I would be even more all in on that show if there was like a community aspect to it, where, like you said, they were giving back at some level to their viewers. Like, I like supporting them,
right?
But how much more would I like supporting them if there was a two-way street going on?
Well, that's the idea, man, is like the creator's able to give back to his audience, right? So here's a really cool example. So when we first got into Clubhouse, it was my friend Farouk and I, we would hold these, 500,000 people rooms, and we would just bullshit, and it moved from Clubhouse to Twitter, which is now X, formerly Twitter, whatever the fuck you want to call it, right?
Right.
So it moves to Twitter, and we start doing spaces on Twitter, and we're getting like 2, 3, people in our audience a day, because this is how we started on Clubhouse. You just build it up, and the next thing you know, we're getting 100, 200, 300, 800, 1,000, 4,000, 5,000, and we're getting these huge rooms, and it's literally just us what up, man? Just talking bullshit and just having fun, talking about crypto, bringing up people. Every day we do something different. It'd be like, today we're going to bring fungibles up, and today we're giving fungibles fucking money away. And we'd be giving our friends money away. We'd be like, yeah, I'll give away some fucking money. We do trivia and give money. Stupid shit, right? We just have these rooms. And one day this guy sends a direct message to Farouk, and he goes, I got to go to my shitty job at 7-Eleven and make my $11 an hour, and I just want to fucking listen to you guys all night and party with you. And Farouk reads it on stage, and he's like, man, I wish we could fucking pay this guy to listen to us. And I'm like, shit, bro. I've been working on a UBI system with, remember Andrew Yang, the president, the president candidate? We were working on a UBI system for him with crypto, of how we create universal basic income and utilize it for the entire economy. And we were kind of like working on this whole concept with me and my friend Mel, who's a tokenization expert, which I really need you to get her on one day, because she will fucking blow your mind with how crypto works. She's a fucking genius. So I'm talking to her. We're trying to create this concept of universal basic income and how we can, create a quadratic fund that yields tokens. And we're on the stage, and this guy had DM'd Farouk, and he goes, hey, I would love to listen to you guys all night. And I go, Farouk, I've been talking to my friend Mel about how to create UBI. Let's bring her up on stage. And she was in the audience, and she's texting me. She's like, let's do this. And so I bring her up on stage, and I'm like, Mel, how can we create a tokenomic system or an ecosystem where we can pay back our listeners so that they can hang out with us, vibe all night, and then get paid back for how much time they spent? And then I was like, and how can we expand it so that we can hire on more hosts to open up more spaces so that they get paid? So everybody's making money off of this token. And she comes up with this whole tokenomic system right on stage, this whole strategy of how we're going to do this to pay people back, essentially, for listening to a podcast on Twitter or Clubhouse or whatever you want to use for your podcast. And so we came up with this concept, and we're on stage. And at the time, X was so shitty, the technology, that you would constantly get thrown off the stage because of too many people in your room.
Yeah, this was back when it was Twitter. Was it Periscope or no? It was
just Twitter.
Twitter.
They stole the technology from Clubhouse. Instead of buying it, they just stole it and redid it. And they did a really shitty job.
Yeah.
So we're using
Well, it's because all their engineers back then were having, green matchas and playing pickleball on the
Exactly.
roof. None of them were actually doing engineering.
Yeah.
It's amazing that
they didn't want to make money.
Yeah, Elon has like fired 90% of the staff, and the system works just as
Shocking,
well, if
right?
not better.
Right.
And it's like, wow, amazing what happens when you get rid of all the bad hires. Anyway, I digress.
No, it was such shit technology. We would talk shit so many times. It's like, how did you guys fuck this up so badly? But we wanted to be on Spaces because that's where our followers were. I mean, I had a few followers on Twitter. Farouk had followers where we didn't have that. We were building a new following Clubhouse where we could really build rooms and in Spaces. And the whole idea was to onboard the masses into crypto, right? To continue spreading like how we can create decentralization and basically start a podcast about crypto. And that's all we did every day. And we did this, I don't know, maybe 600 days in a row. I mean, just every day, just nonstop. Farouk text me, yo, bro, let's get on. And so we would just do this. So how do we get people paid back? And so we came up with a concept because we were always just getting thrown off these shitty Spaces and everything was just such shit technology. I was like, yo, let's call it rug radio. Like we're always getting rugged is what we called it. When you get thrown off a space, fuck, we were rugged. If you tweet it out, fucking 100 people be like, get back on, so we'd get back on. And so it's like rug radio is the name. And so we came out and you can Google it. It's still a company. I was one of the co-founders of it. And we created this system where you minted 10,000 different rugs, okay? And the rugs were created by all these different artists that we had within the space, and they were based on NFT projects where it was like the CryptoPunks, the apes, and they're all, when we reached out to the founders and we put their NFTs on the rugs, right? And then we had this really dope artist come up with all these different designs for the rugs. And then we released them, but to buy the rugs, you needed a membership pass for Rug Radio. So the membership passes were free. So they were nothing. We just minted them, and there was 20,000, I think, or 10,000 available, and you minted them for free. It didn't cost you a penny, except for the gas fees, whichever those were. So we gave all these free NFTs away, and then to buy a rug, you just needed one of those NFTs. And so we sold all these rugs, 10,000 of them for, I don't know, I think like 0.2 ETH or something, and that funded originally the basis of the business. It immediately sold out. I mean, within fucking seconds. I don't know how much ETH it was. I think it was like 15,000 ETH traded, which if you do the math, 15,000 times 3, 40, I can't do math, dude.
Wait, 15,000 times
3,000.
Oh, 45,000. No, that'd be $45 million.
Yeah. So in the very beginning, we probably made about like maybe 5 million, and then we made 10% of the 45 million. So like $10 million at the very beginning. Off the opening of our business.
You and Farouk?
Yeah, but like the business. I only took a portion of it as a founder. I think, I'm not gonna say how much I got paid.
Okay.
But I took a certain amount as a founder, and then that was it. We created the business, and it was funded. And the idea is to basically create a media company that was decentralized and that allowed podcasters to come on board and make money podcasting, because there's already people doing Spaces every night, man.
Right.
Every night they were on just hanging out. Like, why not get paid to be there?
Again, this is the freemium model.
Right.
That like all these unicorn billion now approaching $1 trillion companies, they're getting rich off of the free work of the laborers.
Right. And so how does these people going to get fucking paid? It doesn't make sense, right? Because where's the liquidity going to come from? Well, the liquidity comes from the idea of like this. The token itself is a DAO token. It's a governance token, which means that you have control of the company with how many DAO tokens you hold. You can vote. You can structure the company the way you could vote us out, essentially. Governance tokens aren't sellable. They're not a licensed security. They're not for sale. You can't do anything with them. But somebody decided to open a liquidity pool for these tokens. Not us, somebody on the side. And this usually happens typically within crypto, where it's kind of like a gambling pool. You know how a pool is created, like a liquidity pool. It's like you exchange something for something. So it's like one token equals $1. And as they fluctuate throughout the liquidity pool, things increase in value. So either the dollar becomes more worthy, like as the tokens deplete, or the tokens become more valuable. And so this liquidity pool was started by somebody. He put the liquidity in, and then more people decided to put liquidity in. But then the idea could be, now you're doing advertisements, right? So every single host, you have a podcast, I have a podcast, I'm doing photography every Thursday, you're doing music Mondays, all this shit, right? And the idea is now we have advertisements. So let's say a crypto company like, I don't know, let's not use a crypto company. Let's just say Hoover Vacuums, Dyson Vacuums wants to advertise on their podcast, right? And we always called them out. We wanted them to fucking do it because they clean your rugs. And so the idea is like you onboard the advertiser, but then they have to buy, because you can't put money in this liquidity pool because it's a licensed security, unlicensed, unregistered security. So you're not you're not going to fuck with this liquidity pool. But the advertiser, they can buy that token because you're not in control of it.
Yeah, they're buying advertising space.
They're buying the token. So the agreement is you guys give us 50%. So you give us, let's say, $100,000, and then you buy $100,000 worth of this token. That is the Rug Radio token, which is an unlicensed, unregistered security, but we have no control of it. We don't even own it. I don't even own any Rug token. It's a matter of this token has now been in a liquidity pool. We would like you to fund it as well and be a part of it. And so they buy that piece of that token as well. So now the token goes up, right? And so now everybody who's been getting this token, now their token value goes up. And how did they get the token, right? Where did it come from? Well, the rugs that you bought, different rugs yielded a certain amount of tokens. Does this make sense?
I'm kind of following it, but it's basically, I mean, it's just an advertising model, but the advertisers are putting model into a token that pays back your audience because they're basically shareholders of the company. So just swap out token with stock certificate.
Yes.
And the value of a business goes up because you're getting more advertisers. The stock certificate is worth more. That's how Apple goes from whatever to whatever. Or not, Apple's not a good example because they sell products. But Facebook becomes more valuable because they're getting more advertising dollars in. So therefore the stock certificate goes up in value. It's just all of the tokens. The crypto version of stock is owned by the viewers and the listeners, and as marketing dollars come into that tokens, the value of their token goes up because it's just like any other supply and demand. They're buying the supply for a higher price.
Totally. Except how many companies have you bought stocks for that they give you stocks for just hanging out with them?
Zero.
Or putting time into it.
Zero.
And that's the idea where Web3 comes in, where it's like you're putting the time in, so you're getting back what you put in.
Yeah.
So you're building within that company, you're getting more governance tokens to be able to run the company. And if you want to sell those tokens in that liquidity pool that exists that we never created, you can do that and you can cash out. And the idea is that the NFTs that you essentially bought for really dirt cheap that are now worth a bunch more money, they're yielding you the tokens too. So on top of the tokens that you're getting from all those rugs that you own because you decided I wanted to buy these NFTs early and buy this art early, you're now making money because you're hosting spaces and you're listening to spaces because you're getting, the host gets tokens, they're getting tokens, everybody's making money essentially. Now, is it sustainable? Currently, no, it's not completely sustainable, but that's where the technology has to evolve. That's where we have to bring more education in, more people in. And it was sustainable for a few years, but as the technology evolves, as the market evolves, things are going to change and we have to evolve with it. I have nothing to do with that company anymore, but that was the general idea of it.
Just imagine this. What if, 20 years ago, Steve Jobs had a revolutionary idea and he's like, hey, every dollar you spend with Apple, you're going to get 3 cents back that goes into an escrow account where you buy Apple stock. So you buy a 99-cent song on iTunes, you buy 3 cents of stock. You buy a $1,000 iPhone, you get $30 of Apple stock. People have bought so much fucking Apple product, subscription services, storage space, iPhones, iPads, iPods, iMacs, over my lifetime between going all the way back to the very first iPod and iTunes. And then every couple of years, Chris needs a new Mac to edit this podcast. I've probably spent $30,000, $40,000 on Apple shit over the last 20 years, right? So now you dollar cost average in 3%. So say 40,000, 3% would be $1,200. $1,200 over 20 years, I'd probably own $100,000 worth of Apple stock.
Right.
And that would be Apple giving back to me. And by the way, they could just raise their profit margin by 3% to fund that account. Out. Yeah. Imagine all the broke people, like legit poor people who somehow find a way to come up with $1,700 every 11 months to buy a new iPhone. Those people would actually have some wealth in the Apple company via their stock if there was a way to tokenize it and give the audience some money back.
Now, this is a very primitive form of thought because it's like the first time you've ever thought of this, right?
Right.
Well, now think of it in a more advanced form. Now, I'm going to give you a really cool example. Solana, which is an ecosystem for a token called Solana, they created a phone. Who the fuck is going to buy a phone made by a blockchain? Didn't make any sense, and it didn't sell. For the first year, nobody bought them. And then Solana, I don't know who came up with this idea or where it came from, but Solana ecosystem started making meme coins. I don't know if you ever saw, remember Bowden, all that shit, all these meme coins that came out. Well, there's these tokens, Bonk, Grok, all these shit. Well, Solana came up with this idea of like, hey, you buy these Solana phones, and they come with this token called Bonk. You get it airdropped when you buy the phone. It comes with 2,000 Bonk. Bro, I'm talking about an eBay fucking like run for their money. Everybody's trying to buy these phones at 3x their value. Everyone, I mean, I had a friend buying one for $12,000, still made his money back off the bunk, by the way. Everybody's trying to buy these phones because they realize this might be a whole new ecosystem, right? So we're thinking you should give people back based on the value of the phone and, you know, the income that you based on that. Think of it like this. Apple now is paying you back for their apps, which we call dApps, which are built on blockchain technology. They're apps. So every app that is used on the iTunes ecosystem, let's say you're getting an airdrop. You're getting a piece of their profit, or you're getting, let's say they release a token. You're getting that token as a Solana or as a Apple phone holder.
Yeah.
So as a Solana phone holder, the amount of fucking airdrops these people got over the last 6 months of all the bullshit, because think about this. I create a Bowden token or a token. I want to drop it immediately to all the Solana phone users.
Right.
Because I'm like, dude, these guys are whales. These guys, they're going to be stoked. They're going to see it in their wallet and they're going to be like, yo, I just got 10 cents. I'm just going to hold it. And then that ecosystem is going to be created.
Yeah.
We're thinking this primitive when it's just, dude, and that's even primitive. Think about the next model, the next layer. It's like, we simplify it so much, but it's like, dude, there's so much more to it when there's airdrops coming in on the technology that you're using, when you're literally getting paid $100,000 more than what you spent. You like, we're thinking 3 cents per phone. I'm thinking like $1 million. You know, like that's where the technology, and it's like, now you could take that token, you could say, I'm going to hold this forever. Maybe this is going to be worth $1 billion one day, or I'm going to sell it right now. But that's like the advantage of where we're headed with this technology is like, because of the XRP thing, and I'm basically saying this is not a security, it's going to open, I believe, the floodgates for what's going to happen next, which is decentralization is going to allow so many more companies to be opened up that never could have done on this technology before. So many or more ideas will be created. And that's what, when Trump says, I don't want Bitcoin to go to China, I want it all to be created here. What I think he's trying to say is like, the technology, the innovation that we're making, if we ban that shit here, it's all going to Dubai. It's all going to China. It's all going to the technology, the innovation. Fuck the currency, man. The innovation with this backbone of technology that we can do with this is so much bigger than Bitcoin, than Ethereum. This is going to be everything that we wanted the internet to be. And that's why it's not just about why should I buy Bitcoin. It's about the entire ecosystem and technology that's being built on that's going to fundamentally allow our children to be able to not be sold that Orwellian American dream where you buy a fucking house and be inundated with debt for the rest of your life. They're going to be sold the idea of like UBI, creatives, where they have no jobs because everything's autonomous, where probably there's not even going to be money, where it's going to be a whole different system and you have to work for what you want. It's going to be a different style and you will actually get it when you work for it. I mean, that's the idea, right? Is that you come to America, the land of opportunity, which is the greatest place on the planet. You can live out of your fucking car and become a fucking photographer. Very few places in the world can you do what I did. We live in a great place. However, we're meant to be poor. And I think the idea, and that's what George Orwell was talking about in Animal Farm in 1984, we are meant to be poor so that the aristocrats, so that the government, so that the wealthy can continue to live on with their royalty legacy. But the idea what we're creating here is that not communism, not socialism, but the idea is that if you want to work for what you want, you can actually get it. The idea of opportunity that we were sold, the land of the free, libertarianism, what we were sold, that's what we're building.
Yeah, it's real capitalism, right? Because it's like, the company or whoever's issuing the token has to give back. You have to work for it or at least buy the right stuff. The government can't inflate it away. It's like, yeah, it's real stuff.
Let me give you an example. If I created a token right now and I said I'm the only one who has control of how many of these tokens are printed, would you buy that?
No.
And I'm the only one in control. You have no control of that. I will be in control of how many are printed, or even a company. I have control of how many stocks are going out. There will be no board. I will tell you when the fucking stocks are going out. Would you ever buy into that? That's the biggest Ponzi scheme shitcoin I've ever heard of. That is the US dollar, sir.
Yeah. No, you don't have to convince me on that. I want to circle full circle back because you showed me before we sat down, we started recording, you showed me a project that you're working on where who paid you to go to Lisbon to take photos?
They didn't pay me to go to Lisbon, take photos. They paid me to speak. NFC Lisbon paid me to go out there and just talk about blockchain.
Awesome. Yeah. So while you were out there, you took these amazing pictures of Lisbon.
I spent a month and a half out there after only being paid for a week. I'm like, dude, I'm fucking never leave.
Yeah, your wife would come to jiu-jitsu every day. Yeah, he stayed for a few days. He said, I don't think he's going to come home. I think I might be like looking for a new husband.
You remember the pictures I sent? You'd be like, tell my family I miss them, but I'm never coming home.
Yeah. And you took that one picture of that cityscape, and I don't know how you do it, but there was a long enough exposure or something where none of the people are there, none of the cars are there. It just looks like a zombie landscape in full color. And you were showing me how you take the photo and then you give it some AI prompts, and then it reissues the photo in like 70, 80 different themes.
Yes.
And now you have something to sell on the blockchain.
Yeah.
I think I explained it, but can you explain what you're actually doing with your art?
Yeah. So, photography, obviously, it's essentially, what people call not an art form. It's an emerging technology. And so is AI, right? So I thought, how cool would it be to collaborate AI with photography and not just like replace a sunset or move the people out? That is a cool collaboration, don't get me wrong, but I was like, I want to create a collaboration where AI is creating the art off of my art. So I took the photo, but then AI interprets it. So what I did essentially is that I took, one of my photos from Amsterdam, I put it into AI, and I put a lot of different photos to try and get like what's going to give me the right results. So this was a few days of kind of like testing different photos and what's going to create the right styles, because the more simple the photo I found, the better the style I can get out of it, the more variance I can get out of it, because it's able to replicate it better. So I go into ChatGPT and I create the prompt, because I'm not that good with words. I use ChatGPT almost for everything when it comes to words, right? And so I put the picture in and I say, create a prompt for this picture that's going to recreate it in AI. So it creates the prompt. It's like, narrow pathway, fucking whatever, right? And it creates the prompt. And then I take that prompt and I put it into a new program in Photoshop AI, which is just in beta right now. I don't think it's even completely out. It just came out in the last few days. And so you can basically create images like you can with ChatGPT. But what I like about Photoshop AI is that I'm able to create different styles from different eras and different art. So for example, I can take like pointillism, or I can take modernism, or I can take neo-modernism, or any type of style, and then put it into this image and then recreate it, right? So the image is then recreated with neo-modernism, right? And it's like, well, that's fucking cool. But I don't want to just steal neo-modernism.
But it's based off of your original photo.
Based off my original prompt. So it looks just like I showed you those images. They look directly like, so this is the image it was actually taken from.
Yeah.
They look exactly like that. And it's fucking crazy how it literally replicated that image from words that were created by another AI system into a new AI system. I was like, this is mind blowing that it literally recreated my exact
It's
image.
like some Inception shit.
It's
so
unreal.
you took your art and you told ChatGPT to turn your art into a prompt.
Into words.
And then you took those words and you took them to Photoshop and you said, okay, Photoshop, make art based off of these words. Mm-hmm. And the art that it came up with looks a lot like your photo.
Almost identical, right?
It's crazy.
Fucking identical.
But it looks like your photo was painted under the guise of like a Van Gogh Starry Night.
Exactly.
Or your like post-impressionism or whatever the fuck it's called, where there's like a lot of sharp lines.
Yes.
And I don't know anything about art, but I think I know a couple words. And I looked through them and I'm like, oh, that's clearly all from the same source photo, but they all look way different.
Way different, right? It's complete. There's 120 variants and they're all different. And that's like, it is so much fucking fun to sit there and make my art into new art and create all these variants. I'm just like, this just gives a whole new layer to what I can create with this. And every single piece that I create, I'm like, I'd hang that on my wall. Like I would hang every single piece. So if there's 120 variants, I'm like, I'd hang all these fucking things. Because once you start, you're like, all right, neo-modernism and paint with palette knife and acrylic. And you're like, oh, well, what the fuck is this? And now I'm going to add stencil, and I'm going to add bold line and this style and this. And you can add up to like 130 different adaptions of style into this. So you could add them all. And I did all 130 to see what that would come up with, right? And it was like, what the fuck is like this psychedelic just mess? And I'm like, all right, so you narrow it down and you could literally create 1 trillion different types of art because of you could layer them on top of each other and stack. So you could do 80 different layers, 40, whatever you want, 2. And so I'm sitting there just making more and more variants, thousands of different variants coming up with this. And ultimately, like I ended with 120 of this AI collaboration with my art. And the idea is I'm going to release it tomorrow on my birthday. I'm going to release it as like a kind of like a birthday thing. I was just like, is it yet?
Happy birthday in an hour and 5 minutes.
Thanks,
yeah.
Bro. And so I'm going to release it and just kind of like, essentially what it is like you can mint all these variants, right? But until the entire system gets minted out, it won't close. So what that means is like you might end up with 10 neo-modernism pieces, right, of the same one. And you might end up with 10 different ones. But until that entire thing is completely sold out, it might take 5,000, it might take 10,000, it might take 1,000 of these sales for it to, it's random. So whenever it is sold, all the variants, all 120 variants, whether there be multiples of it or not, that's when it's completely done and sold out, which is like a really cool concept in the sense of like, this is a really cool smart contract. It's hard to write this code. It's like everything essentially is an art piece. The code itself, the smart contract, everything that you put into it, it's all brand new. It's not like you can just jump online and Google, how do I make a smart contract to create a replication of an AI piece in variants and make it so everybody mints something? It's like, there's no fucking answer to that.
Right.
So it's like, you got to be in, you have to know things, you have to educate yourself. So it's like, this is really, not everybody can do this. And that's what I think like makes this so unique right now, is that a new concept can literally be, what I did was putting my book on the blockchain 3 years ago, which no one had done. So I was the first person to ever put a book on the blockchain. These are all new and that's an easy thing to do. I just put the book on the blockchain and sold it. But now that's like a renowned idea. Everyone's doing that. You can be the first because that's such like, you're in my opinion, a very small pond, and you can be a very big fish. Because it's just like web in 1998. If we had jumped on that shit in 1998, we might own Google right now. That's the idea.
When does National Geographic come calling? Because I want to talk about the work you've done for them.
Yeah, so a lot of companies came calling because I was one of the first landscape photographers to put my work on the blockchain, one of the first guys to like sell in, large digit ETH. So people kind of looked at me like, this guy knows what the fuck he's talking about, which I didn't. I'm not a prophet. I didn't know what the fuck I'm doing. I just thought, this might work, and we have to take risks, right? Like that's the whole idea of like art is like breaking rules and taking risks and going against the grain. So it's like a lot of traditional collectors aren't going to appreciate this. A lot of traditional collectors actually backed out of my work because of this, but I wanted to explore new opportunities. So because I took that risk, I think a lot of brands looked at me and said, well, how do we onboard? How do we come in? And so Canon came to me, a couple other companies came to me and said, how do we get in? And National Geographic was one of them who said, we want to be on the blockchain. We want to put photographers on the blockchain. Can you kind of guide us on how we do this? And, a lot of people think like when a company goes into Web3, they have like this giant 100-piece, team, and it's National Geographic. You should have like 300 people on board. There's like a 3-person team. When Time got on board, it was like a 5-person team. It's like there's nobody. So you're going against the grade in the sense of like every lawyer and every CEO and every executive is telling this team you will never survive. And this is the stupidest fucking idea ever. So National Geographic, all of them have an uphill battle when it's coming into Web3 because you're dealing with essentially a degenerate fucking nation of gamblers. It's not evolved enough yet that we have like this art collector base. So
on the blockchain, you're saying?
Essentially, yes, on the blockchain. So when companies try to come in and put art in there, they're opposed to 99% of degenerates, that just want to make money off the art. So when National Geographic came in, they're just like, how do we come in and not, get a bunch of FUD, which is, fear, uncertainty, and doubt. Right. How do we get away from that? And so
how do we keep up our brand identity in an environment where there are a lot of charlatans and gamblers?
Exactly. And I'm having these conversations. They're like, so we're going to onboard you as a National Geographic photographer. And I'm like, are you kidding? I'm like, this has literally been my dream since I started photography, is like the pinnacle, the peak is becoming a Nat Geo photographer. That's it. There's nothing, in my opinion, that's better in photography than saying, I made it. I shot for National Geographic. And so that was ultimately like owning a gallery, shooting for Nat Geo. So when that came around and they were like, hey, we want to do this assignment with you where you do a good morning picture, a GM. That's what the common thing is in FG, GM, good morning. Everybody says this shit on Twitter. You go on Twitter and you'll see it all over the place. So the idea was a GM collection for Web3 for National Geographic. And they said, hey, how can we get brought in? And so it was really cool because I was like, hey guys, the best way to do this, and this is what I tell all companies, when you want to onboard into this community, be a part of it, right? Be active within it. So I said, host a gallery at Art Basel in Miami, pay for it. Literally host a gallery and put a bunch of photographers in there and let them be a part of it. And I was like, and that will bring people in, and that will like bring your name as an introduction of like, hey, we're here and we're a part of it and we're here to support you guys. So they said, well, do you want to curate it? And I'm like, are you curate a gallery for National Geographic? Like, fuck yeah, man. And so Time Magazine came in and Morgan Stanley as the supporters for it, along with National Geographic for this gallery. And I'm curating it for 100 photographers. And I'm like, this is insane. This is 2022. And like, just so much has happened over the last 2 years and all of a sudden this. So that's kind of how I was introduced to Nat Geo. That's how I
Like
was
3 years
onboarded.
earlier, you were selling your camera to fund the
Survive.
studio.
Yeah. And now they're asking me to literally co-collaborate and curate it by myself, an entire gallery, and choose the photographers for it.
Man, how'd it go?
It's fucking awesome, man. I mean, like when I got into NFTs, there were no photography galleries. Nobody had done an NFT photography gallery. So I was actually the first to ever do an NFT photo gallery at Art Basel in 2021. When someone had asked me, hey, do you want to curate this for this huge super rare event, which was the biggest platform for NFTs? And I was like, fuck yeah, man. Like, how many photographers can I bring in? They're like 40. So, I mean, I curated 40 photographers. We had this whole exhibition, and that was the first in history of it. And then we just kind of kept going and building off of that. And that's where that company photo that I, sent you that article, that's where it was all created, was the organic idea of like someone asking me, do you want to host a gallery? And I was like, sure. And it just built into photo, which is what it is today. And that's like basically the idea of like, we onboard photographers, we bring them in, we create a dynamic system that's democratized for art to be able to, vote in credibility.
Holy cow, man.
Yeah.
So what's next?
Right. The golden question, right? What's next?
What's next for you?
Right now I'm working on a new book. I'm going to release a new book because I've got almost 20 years now into my profession. So I think right now I've got so much photography that I haven't released that I've been working on. We just released the new website where you can buy all my work with Apple Pay, which we never had before. So you can
What's the website?
jknopf.com, my last name, jknopf.com. And you can buy all the work now, like actually online, buy pieces. And what's really cool is we put the blockchain provenance into the physical pieces. So if you buy a physical print now, it comes with an NFT essentially that shows the provenance on the blockchain. So we no longer do certificates of authenticity in-house. They're immutable on the blockchain forever, which not very many people are doing. So they come with an NFC chip that's on the back that you can scan with your phone, and you can actually log in and like, but I'm the owner of this art.
That's wild, dude.
Yeah, it's a really cool kind of concept.
What does one of your prints cost now if I buy it with Apple Pay on the website?
I think the lowest price is like $3,000.
And the highest?
The highest, maybe $15,000. We don't sell anything over $15,000. If you want to get like custom artist proof prints, that you have to email my assistant Jamie.
She's a good assistant.
She's a killer assistant, man.
Holy shit, man. Well, we got to go get some Taco Bell.
Dude, let's get Taco Bell.
Before your birthday.
Celebratory
Taco Bell. Hey,
fucking gain a pound.
Gain a pound. For those of you that aren't watching the YouTube, John can eat anything in the world in any quantity and not gain any weight. And me over here, I have a Diet Coke and a salad, and I gain 3 pounds.
It's a blessing and a curse.
Yeah. I still hate you.
I love you.
Well, man, okay. So we did one all on crypto. We did this one mostly on art.
Yeah.
What's going to be the next one on? Like, what's the next project that you're going to be like, oh, by the way, on the side, I also do this. So now we're going to talk about this.
I'm selling Amway. So if we could please close all the doors right now, I'd like to tell you this new cologne that we got in smells just like
Jiu-Jitsu Studios.
Yes, exactly. It's a sweat of all the men in Jiu-Jitsu. I have encapsulated into this Amway perfume, and it'll wear off in about 15 minutes.
Oh, shit. Actually, I forgot. I asked you last time what your favorite movie was and why. What's your favorite piece of art? Photo, painting, something that's moved you?
It's sad because I don't know the name of it. It's really pathetic because I go to museums and I'm not a big fan of museums, and I hate to admit that openly because I'm going to get canceled for that. But
yeah,
I don't look at art the way I like looking at art in VR, like throwing a headset on and being in a museum by myself.
Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I don't know names of art and I don't know a lot of artist names. But if I'm going to name my favorite, I don't know the piece, but it's by Gregory Crewdson, which is one of my favorite photographers. The guy sets up like these incredible sets for hundreds of thousands of dollars in the middle of roads in like Wisconsin. And like sets up lighting, fog, and just takes these incredible photos that look like cinematic masterpieces. And I love his work because it's like a movie has, 120 minutes to tell you a story, right? This guy takes one frame out of that fucking movie and can tell you an entire story with just one image. And so I love his work, and I can't tell you the piece, but Yeah, I don't know the name of it, but his fucking work, man.
Do you like any classic stuff? Like, can you appreciate going and looking at, Renaissance style paintings of, obviously the modernist stuff is pastels and they were all high.
Yeah.
But like, when you go look at a painting that's, I don't know, 700 years old and it looks like a photograph, I don't know. I just have so much respect for that because I'm like, that's such a fucking art. Like, it's such a skill. Couldn't name any of them for you.
Yeah.
But do you like any of that stuff or that's just not your jam?
I'm desert trash, dude. I hate to say it. Like,
Cool.
I do appreciate it because I appreciate the history. My wife is an art history,
of course,
major. Like, she is obsessed with art history in Egypt. So, like, she will teach me all about art history. And then I was in, like, the most beautiful museums in the world sending her photos. I'm like, this is kind of cool. And she's like, listen to the fucking history behind this, dude.
Yeah.
And how it almost got destroyed 300,000 times and how it's lasted this long so you can fucking look at it. And
right.
She's
getting all bitter with you.
Yeah, she's just like explaining how this was created. And I'm like, oh, that's kind of dope. I was like, that's really cool. So it's like the story behind the images really hit me harder than the actual work because I look at art and I look at it probably like everybody else and I go, I could bake that, scribbles on a paper. Like, I could do that. But then you hear the story and the piece behind it and how it survived all this and you're like, it's more than the art.
Yeah.
It's what it is to, the meaning of it. And so that's why personally, I fucking hate museums unless I get like VIP access by myself. I don't want to be crowded by a bunch of people trying to absorb a piece and take it in. It's like, you don't listen to classical music, in a concert hall rocking out with a bunch of people. You listen to it in a fucking car ride and you're like, oh, this is relaxing.
Yeah.
It's the same with an art piece. I want to take it in and enjoy it. So that's why I really enjoy VR, like Quest or anything like that, where I just throw it on and I'll go into a museum and just like look around. I'm like, this is relaxing.
By the way, the next time that the mortgage industry is printing money, I've already identified my next addiction. So a friend of mine, I won't use my name just in case he would be embarrassed of me admitting this. A friend of mine is like a total music, I don't know what the word is, neophyte or like
audiophile or whatever.
Yeah. Way beyond fan. Yeah, way beyond fan. And he bought this stereo, this record player that like people in the space would know what I'm talking about. It's like a Wenster Feigl or a Wenster Linger or something like that.
There's a whole community behind
It's a whole
shit.
community.
Yeah.
This like cabinet and this record player that's on like 4 gyroscopes so that it never skips. And then the speakers are like imported from Germany and then it's like molded into this cabinet. And I was like, okay, whatever, it's a record player. And then he's like, yeah, it's a $20,000 record player.
Fuck you.
I was like, oh, okay. I'm like, but it plays records, right?
It plays music, right? Yeah.
So then he put on, we listened to a couple albums. We listened to Verses by Pearl Jam, definitely in my top 5 albums. We listened to Guns N' Roses' greatest hits. And I didn't know this, but record players have so much, or records have so much more sound complexity than CDs.
They got warmth to them.
Crisp. I just figured this. I just was taught this. But like when they compress digital music so it will fit on a CD, you kind of get rid of the highs and the lows. And like especially on like a Pearl Jam song, Eddie Vedder's voice just like stomps on everything. But when you're listening to the record, you can hear like the hi-hat and the bass line, and you can hear the cowbell, and you can hear like every intricacy of the music. We just sat there and I was like, this is like being at a concert. This is the best music listening experience. I almost called my wife. I'm like, honey, we got $12 in our account till next paycheck, but I really want to buy like a $20,000 record player.
I'm getting this.
And all my music I want to have on record, which, records are not cheap anymore. They're like $45, $50 each. So to basically replace my kind of go-to daily record or music catalog, I mean, this is going to be like a $40,000 project, and it's going to be totally worth it one day. Fuck. So if you could fall in love with high-end record players, the next time you sell a bunch of NFTs, we'll just do listening parties at your house.
I got you. I'm embarrassed to say how much I spent on the audio upstairs, but one day you're going to need to come upstairs and actually listen to what I put.
Are you inviting me into your bedroom?
I'm inviting you into my bedroom. You hit the little date night button.
Perfect, man.
Blinds go down. Lights go red.
Next time we talk, we'll talk about music.
All right, bro.
All right,
I love it. Thanks for having me.